Chapter 501, Arrival of News II. Chen Mufeng accepted his task and left. Li Zicheng stood in contemplation for a moment before riding the wind up to Mount Qingdu. After making a big around, he gently landed in an unassuming courtyard. He knocked on the door and entered. Inside, Li Yuanping was seated on a stone bench, carefully recording something with a brush in his hand. Though he appeared fine, his hand trembled slightly, and he was struggling to hold the brush steadily. As soon as Li Zicheng stepped forward, Li Yuanping glanced up and asked, "How do you plan to handle it?" Li Zicheng hesitated for a moment before replying, "About that. A minor sect cultivator was used as a scapegoat. I'll have the minor sect investigate this. Many of the brothers listened to me, so it shouldn't be too difficult to uncover who altered the numbers in the report." Li Yuanping shook his head and spoke softly, "But you will only find yet another scapegoat. I will teach you one final lesson. This whole incident is a test to gauge your preferences and to probe your limits. All the forces under your command share in the benefits and silently acquiesce to support this. That minor sect cultivator was just a convenient scapegoat for them. If you rely on them for the investigation, you'll expose your closeness and trust toward the branch families. Whether you rely on the Jade Court Guards, the Du family, or Peak offices, your inclinations become clear." He continued in a low voice, "The greatest danger here is that the interests of the cultivators under your command align against yours. On the surface, the minor sect appears as the victim, but in reality, it is complicit. The only truly innocent party is the cultivator that had been made a scapegoat." Li Zicheng listened intently, only to see Li Yuanping smile coldly before saying, "All you need to do is send someone to the warehouse and quietly adjust the 190 jin to match the reported 181 jin. Once the numbers align, this coalition of opportunists will collapse under their own weight." Li Zicheng was stunned, but then realization dawned upon him. He nodded eagerly, a smile spreading across his face as he exclaimed in delight, "That's brilliant." He nodded repeatedly, murmuring to himself, "That will really stir the pot. The minor sect will panic and they'll start suspecting each other, wondering which faction turned the false report into reality. Inevitably, they'll start pointing fingers and tear each other apart. All I'll need to do is sit back and arbitrate, suppress the strong, support the weak, and maintain the balance of power." Li Yuanping did not respond, continuing to write in silence. With his plan set, Li Zicheng bowed deeply and took his leave. Li Yuanping was counting the days as he meticulously updated the family history. After a short while, he noticed Li Qinghang arrive, her form subtly crackling with electricity as she sat down beside him gracefully. She pursed her vermilion lips and simply sat in silence. The two siblings faced each other quietly, with the early spring breeze gently sweeping through the courtyard. Li Yuanping had never spent much time with this elder sister as they had never grown up together. After a long pause, he finally broke the silence by commenting, "There's indeed something suspicious about Zhang Huid. Please be patient, big sister. You mustn't act impulsively." Li Qinghang merely replied softly, "I know. I've been patient for so many years. I'm just afraid that if I keep holding back, I'll eventually forget about this resentment." Li Yuanping snorted, setting his brush down. "Well, isn't that why we record history?" Li Qinghang glanced at the sheets in front of him. "Zicheng may not be the strongest, but he's trying his best. I've seen how much he's changed over the past 10 years. He's a completely different person now," she remarked. Li Yuanping nodded in agreement. "I noticed." Li Qinghang had spent several days practicing with her spear on the mountain. Before she could uncover anything about the devil cultivators in the north, a deer demon arrived from the south and landed at the foot of the mountain politely. He waited for Njayan and the others to inform the family about his arrival first before entering the mountain. The deer demon was looking for Li Yunjiao. Since he was away from home, Li Qinghang was the one to receive him. The deer demon kneeled on all fours before her, and in a human voice said, "Exalted Immortal, my master has discovered a clue regarding the Blood Sun fruit. Please follow me to the mountain to discuss the details with him." "Very well," Li Qinghang replied with a smile and a nod. She summoned Li Wushao from the lake, instructing him to take care of the household before following the deer demon into the mountain. Li Yunjiao had mentioned to Li Qinghang about the Foundation establishment realm deer demon named Lucan before. Hence, she knew that he had picked a mountain that was not particularly tall and set up a demon den on its northern slope. The foot of the mountain was flat, so many deer had been relocated there. When Li Qinghang and the lesser demon reached the cave, Lucan himself came out to greet them. He had brown hair, black eyes, and was slightly taken aback by the sight of her. "You are?" "I am Li Qinghang. My brother Li Yunjiao is currently away from home, so I've come in his place," she replied with a smile. The deer demon blinked and nodded. "I am Lucan. It's a pleasure to meet you, fellow Taoist." Without beating around the bush further, Lucan cupped his fist and explained, "Your brother asked me to track down a treasured panacea known as Blood Sun fruit. Now that I've found a lead, I wanted to inform your esteemed family." Li Qinghang nodded. "I've received multiple reports. A fellow Taoist from the southern slope once wrote to me, claiming to have seen a tiger demon from Mount Quanwu demon den possessing this fruit. The description in the letter matches what we know of the Blood Sun fruit. I believe it to be genuine. Li Qinghong simply nodded in agreement without saying a word. Lucan shook his sleeves and continued, that tiger demon holds some sway within the Quanwu demon den, though it isn't an important figure and is often bullied. Better to act sooner than later. Why don't we ride the wind to Mount Quanwu and seize the panacea before circumstances change? He suggested. Let's seize the spirit fruit first and if possible, kill the demon. If we manage to slay it, all the better. If not, no harm is done. If we can't take it by force, we'll try to buy it, Lucan spoke matter-of-factly. Li Qinghong had no choice but to nod in agreement. After all, dealing with demon creatures was different. They acted openly and without pretense. What is the cultivation level of this tiger demon? She asked. Mid-stage foundation establishment realm, Lucan replied, noticing the concern on her face. But don't worry, Fairy. He's just a demon general without a proper Dao lineage. He hasn't learned the spells of the human race and relies solely on his raw demon power, he explained. He smiled reassuringly and continued, give it a month and you'll see for yourself. Li Qinghong nodded. Sensing the profound thunder swirling in the thunder pool within her Qihai acupoint, she felt confident in her own strength. Lead the way, please, she responded politely. With that, she followed Lucan, and the two soared up into the clouds. As they flew on, Lucan seemed to be mulling over her age and sighed. The legacy of your esteemed family is truly remarkable. The cultivation speed of you and your elder brother is astonishing, even compared to other clans. It makes us old-timers, who have been cultivating for hundreds of years, feel ashamed. Li Qinghong offered a few modest words in return. Lucan then said, which Dao foundation have you cultivated? Since we'll be fighting together soon, we should get to know each other's abilities first. He activated his mana, and a pair of large antlers appeared on his head. His voice grew deeper and more resonant while the demonic wind he summoned was fresh and filled with renewed vitality. Mine is Lingyun wood. It allows me to heal, control qi, nurture spirit plants, cultivate earth veins, and even transform into plants, he explained. As soon as he revealed his immortal foundation, his speed on the wind quickened significantly. Li Qinghong nodded lightly, and a crackle of purple lightning appeared beneath her feet. Her speed increased even further, her jade armor flashing with violet sparks as she replied softly, profound thunderpool. I can wield thunder and lightning to eliminate demons and suppress evil. Chapter 502, Obtaining the Fruit I. Although Li Yunjiao had mentioned this deer demon to her before, this was the first time Li Qinghong had met the deer demon. Not wanting to reveal too much to him, she kept the explanation of her abilities short. Realization dawned upon Lucan as he said solemnly, so Fairy is the Li family's thunder cultivator. Please excuse my rudeness. His attitude became much more respectful as he politely said, your profound thunderpool is the nemesis of the tiger demon's hurricane ghost Yin. It is as good as caught already. Li Qinghong slowed down to keep pace with the deer demon. Is it really that easy to deal with the Quanwu demon den? Lucan nodded and explained, Yue State is unlike the southern border and the eastern sea. Mount Quanwu or Quanwu Demon Den is called Mount Zuiliu by the demonic creatures in the southern border. He then added slowly, Quanwu was originally the residence of a purple mansion realm demon king. This demon was once the mount of a golden core realm cultivator and had some influence over the southern border in Jiangnan. He lived in Quanwu. Whenever a demon den was destroyed in the southern border, the demon king of Quanwu would entice the suffering demons to Quanwu with pills and elixirs. At that time, Dongli Immortal Sect was still around. Yue State had 4 sects and 12 gates. If a disciple needed to find a mount, kill a demon, practice spells, or refine a Dharma artifact, they would go to Mount Quanwu. Later, the demon king disappeared, and the mountain gradually declined after being replaced by Dali Demon Den. Nevertheless, there are still demons seeking refuge on Mount Quanwu from time to time. It became the place where the demons that escaped from the southern border stayed. After hearing this explanation, Li Qinghong was not surprised one bit and merely remarked, so they're demons that have escaped from the southern border. I guess the Azure Pond sect is leaving them be because this is what they want. Yes, Lucan smiled, feeling a little emotional as he said, that place is also a treasure trove. The Azure Pond sect deliberately kept it, waiting for these demons to escape and take out the treasures. No matter how they are circulated, they will eventually fall into the hands of the 3 sects, 7 gates and clans. Besides, if they catch an important demon, they can use it as a bargaining chip to threaten the southern border. At worst, they can make it into a spirit beast. There are just too many benefits, so they have been secretly supporting it, he added. Li Qinghong frowned and whispered, then doesn't that mean that place is the backyard of the Azure Pond sect? If we kill the tiger demon, I guess we'll have to take care of things within the sect too. Lucan was momentarily taken aback, then waved his hand dismissively. No worries, I've already investigated and made sure that this tiger demon is a nobody. Otherwise, I wouldn't dare bring you there, Fairy. He then grumbled to himself inwardly, how could I not investigate first? Your Li family has backing in Azure Pond sect, so there's a way to resolve matters even if you offend someone. I'm just an insignificant deer demon. I can't afford to make enemies. Li Qinghang considered the implications for a moment and thought, if we can rob it, we won't kill it. It's best to avoid more trouble. Both of them began discussing significant events from recent years and found the conversation to be enlightening. Ahead of them, Mount Quanwu soon came into view. While Mount Quanwu was not particularly tall, it was vast and imposing, located near the Mushroom Forest Plain, as well as the Kangwu and Helen prefectures. Surrounded by a large plain, the mountains stood out prominently, concealing many demons within their depths and making them hard to detect. As the deer demon led her into the mountain, they wound around until they reached an inconspicuous peak. As soon as he descended, he was surprised. The cave entrance was wide open, and it was dark and foreboding inside. After scanning with his spiritual sense, Lucan said awkwardly, "Fairy, this tiger demon is quite cautious. He's likely moved to a new cave and isn't here anymore." Li Qinghang was surprised too. However, Lucan rolled his sleeves up and said, "Don't worry, just watch me." He landed, listened attentively, and conversed with the surrounding trees for a while. After walking more than 10 li, they spotted a mountain persimmon tree hidden among the vines with yellow fruits hanging from its branches. Lucan performed a hand seal, and almost instantly the fruits jumped off from the branches one by one and chatted for a moment. With a smile, the deer demon turned to Li Qinghang and said, "Fairy, the tiger demon has gone north." "Good," Li Qinghang praised, her gaze shifting to the yellow mountain persimmon's branches and leaves. A rustling noise ensued. Lucan listened for a moment and then relayed the message to her with a smile. She said she is 37 years away from gaining sentience and begs Fairy to spare her life and 100 years of hard work. Li Qinghang had indeed considered bringing the spirit mountain persimmon back with her. Hearing Lucan's message, she paused in surprise. "I can't believe it has intelligence. Fellow Taoist, you can communicate with plants and trees. How many spirit trees like this are there?" "Not many." Lucan replied but continued regretfully in a soft voice, "What good is gaining sentience? She needs 37 years to become a Qi cultivation realm spirit root. After that, she will require hundreds of years to achieve the foundation establishment realm. Having to live under the mercy of others for so long with spiritual awareness will just increase her suffering." Li Qinghang observed the tree for a while, realizing an embryonic breathing realm spirit root was indeed not that useful to the Li family compared to one that would be of the Qi cultivation realm. With that in mind, she said softly, "Then I'll come back in 37 years. With a wave of her hand, a formation plate flew out of her pouch and landed in front of the tree. A small embryonic breathing illusory formation sprang up around it. She flipped her hand and inserted 3 spirit stones, enough to sustain it for many years. Lucan stroked his beard, watching from the side. Li Qinghang smiled and added, "With the current situation, I may not be able to wait for 37 years. By that time, my Li family's descendants will come. You're being too modest, Fairy. You are blessed and have the potential to reach the Purple Mansion realm," Lucan commented, shaking his head. The two of them continued riding the wind together, conversing until they soon arrived in front of a small hill. Lucan glanced at it and whispered, "Yes, it should be here." Li Qinghang addressed him directly, "How do you plan to handle this, fellow Taoist? I'm afraid the tiger demon will escape, and it will be difficult to pursue it. Although we are swift in riding the wind, the tiger demon's hurricane ghost yin is equally fast. Why don't I go in first and engage it? Once the monster has exhausted most of its strength, you can intervene and catch it off guard, Fairy. Your thunder technique is powerful and will surely succeed," he suggested. Li Qinghang was not entirely convinced by his proposal. She sighed inwardly, "If only I still had Kong Tingyun's emerald jade plate formation artifact with me. It would make things so much easier." However, Lucan had already flown forward, wielding an axe that shimmered with turquoise light. In an instant, it grew to the size of a house and came crashing down onto the low hill, shaking it with a thunderous rumble. Rubble cascaded down instantly, and a thick layer of dust filled the air. "I knew it. These demons lack legacies and rely solely on their brute strength and Dharma artifacts, which is quite simplistic. This technique seems to have been developed by himself, and it's not half bad." Lucan had indeed crafted the axe in his hand himself. He had likely read a few low-grade manuals on refining artifacts and dedicated years to mastering it. However, it still could not compare to the Duruo spear she wielded. "Ow-woo-woo." A tiger roar echoed in the air, and a powerful man with a bare upper body rose from the mountain. Black mist swirled around him as he bellowed in a deep voice, "Demon General, we are never enemies. Why come to my den and provoke me?" Lucan, who had been kind and respectful in Li Qinghang's presence, now revealed his arrogant side and sneered. "Hand over the treasured panacea you possess and save ourselves from a fight. If you refuse to comply, I'll have to kill you and take it myself." Chapter 503, Obtaining the Fruit, II. Lucan, being in the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm himself, exuded a powerful aura that was rather imposing. The tiger demon looked at him with doubt, frowning as he replied, I do not wish to provoke nor fight you." The tiger demon was unwilling to even fight. As his immortal foundation surged, gusts of yin wind enveloped him, and with the aid of the black mist, he shot away like an arrow. Lucan was taken aback. The tiger demons he had encountered in the demon den were typically reckless and short-tempered. He had not expected one to be so cautious. Stunned for a moment, he jumped up and cursed, "Cowardly tiger." He swung the axe in his hand, unleashing a few axe chi the size of horse carriages at the tiger demon, who nimbly evaded the attacks and continued to flee. "Gosh, I knew this would happen." Li Qinghong sighed loudly as she shook her head helplessly, seeing the scenario she had feared finally unfold before her very eyes. Despite Lucan's advanced age, he had spent years in the demon den, sheltered by others while focusing on his cultivation. He believed the tiger demon would be impulsive enough to fight to the death over a few provocations. How could he possibly be a reckless creature and still manage to survive in this mountain? Lucan's decisiveness and confidence were even more surprising to me. She hooked her slender finger, causing her jade-like digits to glow with purple light as she drew a talisman in the air. Thunder suddenly rumbled and black smoke billowed as her thunder talisman was gradually condensed. Purple talisman origin light secret technique. Li Qinghong focused intently on her spell, stepping onto a bolt of lightning as she chased after the tiger demon at an incredible speed, the thunder talisman in her hand ready to be unleashed. Swoosh. The tiger demon swayed in the wind, distancing himself and avoiding Lucan's attack. Intent on escaping, he had not anticipated that a beautiful female cultivator would fly toward him, wielding a surge of thunderlight. The purple glow surrounding her radiated great power. "Fairy!" Black chi surged in the tiger demon's hands as he shouted in confusion, not daring to take a direct hit. He attempted to put distance between himself and his pursuers, trying to ward off the attacks by pushing black chi forward. Suddenly, lightning flashed, igniting his hands and leaving his face scorched and bloodied, nearly revealing his true form. Shit, this deer demon specifically brought a thunder cultivator to target me. As a cultivator who practiced the hurricane ghost yin, he was inherently weak against attacks involving light and thunder. His apprehension deepened when he saw the long spear in Li Qinghong's hand. Its white jade-like appearance indicated it was no ordinary weapon. His courage faltered. Wielding a Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifact and top-tier spell, she must belong to one of the three sects. As black tiger fur began sprouting on his face and his body began to swell, he cried out miserably, "I am willing to hand over the treasure." Lucan frowned but continued swinging his axe. Li Qinghong's thunder spear transformed into a shadow, circling him and cutting off his escape route as she urged, "Hand over the treasured panacea quickly, and you shall be spared." Letter 1E5F, the tiger demon reacted swiftly. With one hand, he produced a jade box while using the other to channel black chi to resist Lucan's axe, retreating several steps in the process. Li Qinghong launched the jade box into the air with her Duriwo spear and soared up into the sky to retrieve it. She scanned it with her spiritual sense, confirming that it indeed contained the Blood Sun fruit. With a quick flick of her wrist, she stored it away just as the tiger demon surged a li away, propelled by the wind. Li Qinghong propelled herself forward amidst purple light, still chasing after him. As the black chi flowed in the tiger demon's palms, he transformed into his original form. The black tiger loomed as large as a hill, surrounded by a strong wind and swirling black chi. Its bloodshot eyes glinted with malevolence, and dark yin energy clung to it. Roaring, it unleashed sound waves that shocked both Lucan and Li Qinghong. "Since it is the exalted immortal who demands the treasured panacea, you can have it as I cannot afford to offend you." However, the tiger demon adopted a desperate demeanor, growling fiercely as he continued, "You too will be sorry if you continue to push me further." Although this tiger demon had a higher cultivation level than Li Qinghong, he had witnessed the strength of a disciple from the three sects. Fearful of Li Qinghong, he seemed restless, gritting his teeth as he attempted to intimidate Lucan. What a tiger demon. Li Qinghong glanced at Lucan beside her and noticed his fear. Previously, he had been the one who suggested killing the tiger demon, but now he was the first to show fear. She could not help but snicker inwardly to herself in amusement. Most demon cultivators are indeed bullies. The tiger demon is more domineering in a low-key manner, but becomes fearful when pushed. Li Qinghong raised an eyebrow and assured calmly, "Don't be nervous, fellow Taoist. I simply want to ask where you have obtained this spirit fruit." The black tiger visibly relaxed, and he became noticeably more polite in speech as he asked, "Which sect do you represent, Fairy?" Li Qinghong laughed and replied ambiguously, "I came from the north." Realization dawned upon the tiger demon as he breathed a sigh of relief. "So she's a mountain master from the Yue cultivating sect. No wonder she spared my life. I guess she wouldn't have wasted her breath talking to me if she were from the Devil Gate." He promptly replied respectfully, "Mountain master, I came from the southern border. I obtained this fruit from the Wu state on the southern border." He then transformed into his human form and told the story of how he had obtained the fruit in detail. It was just an ordinary treasure hunting story that shed no useful information. Li Qinghong frowned and said, "Since you are familiar with the southern border, do keep an eye out for news of this treasure in the future. Maybe I will come again in a few years. If you obtain more of this fruit, you'll be rewarded." The tiger demon was overjoyed. Li Qinghong did not want to make an enemy, so she was not going to complain. This treasured panacea was just a tonic for him, saving him 10 years of cultivation. He had no one to rely on in Yue State, and it was rare for a disciple from the upper sect to befriend him. "I understand. Well, this fruit shall be a gift for meeting you," he replied politely. Li Qinghong glanced at him and felt that this tiger demon behaved more like a human rather than a demon. "How thoughtful, fellow Taoist," she commented with an arched brow. The tiger demon lowered his head and did not answer. Li Qinghong was naturally delighted to be able to obtain the treasure by simply just demanding it. She waved her hand happily and said, "Let's go." Lucan nodded and followed, and the two rode out on the wind. Li Qinghong got the treasure without much effort and was in a good mood. Lucan stroked his beard and found the entire situation to be strange. Is this how prominent clans work? The human race is truly strange in their ways. To think that they even turn enemies into friends. Although he was old, he had been cultivating in the cave for many years, and every seclusion lasted at least a decade. Not only that, but the interactions between demons were usually straightforward, hence they were not sophisticated creatures. Now that he had been out of the cave as a demon general for only more than 10 years, he had even less time to deal with people. Combined with the childish mistakes he had made before, regret welled into his heart. No wonder this tiger demon can cultivate in Mount Quanwu for so long. It could survive all this time probably because he is tactful. There is indeed a lot I can learn from these two individuals. At this moment, he suddenly became much more enthusiastic. Li Qinghong did not understand the sudden shift in the deer demon's demeanor, but she continued chatting with him. She took the Blood Sun fruit out from the jade box and carefully checked it several times. Upon verifying that it was of good quality and she did not make a mistake, she finally let out a sigh of relief. The two flew toward Mount Qingdu, and the deer demon finally left, albeit reluctantly. Li Qinghong landed in front of the mountain and counted the days. Only more than a month had passed. Chapter 504, Hangzhou Dao I. Li Zijian and King Heng rode the wind southward, traversing through Mushroom Forest Plain with Li Xuanxuan flying closely behind them. Suddenly, Li Zijian recalled something and pulled King Heng aside. "Master Monk, since you're using Thunderpool as an opportunity to cultivate, why didn't you mention it earlier?" He whispered. "I have heard that Jiangnan was dangerous, so I truly didn't dare to take the risk as my cultivation technique is of a high grade. While your esteemed family suspects I harbor ill intentions, I'm also afraid you might rob me and kill me," King Heng admitted, rubbing his smooth, bald head. He opened his narrow eyes and let out a sigh before continuing. "Allow me to clarify, fellow Taoist. The cultivation method I practice requires the 9 thunders of heaven and earth. However, the fruition attainment of this cultivation technique is still suspended between heaven and earth, and the thunders I require are difficult to locate. Only when a thunder cultivator breaks through can one of the 9 thunders be born during the establishment of the immortal foundation. Before the elder of my temple passed away, he spent a considerable time deducing the future, and finally learned that one of these thunders would be born in Jiangnan within the next 100 years. He advised me to come here, and also predicted a calamity that could help hone my mind." He then lowered his gaze, adding softly, "Fellow Taoist Yunjiao always doubts me, but to be honest, my Liao River Temple is even worse off than your esteemed family. After the abbot's passing, I felt like a lost dog with nowhere to turn." Li Zijian nodded slightly, feeling a sense of alertness rise within him. "How long has it been since the elder of your esteemed temple passed away?" he asked. "It has been more than 40 years, King Heng replied. Li Zijian calculated silently, realizing that this was around the time when Ling Yanzi from the Purple Smoke Gate fled to his home, where his ancestor rescued him and their family acquired the Purple Thunder secret origin technique. More than 40 years. Jiangnan now has several thunder cultivators. If this is part of a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator's scheme, it must have been laid down more than 40 years ago. Although Li Zijian had never seen Ling Yanzi, he had read about him in the family history and knew that Li Tongya was the one who dealt with him back then. Ling Yanzi could not have deceived the ancestor. This means Ling Yanzi might be unaware that he has inadvertently become someone else's pawn. Purple Smoke Gate. Could this be the scheme of their Taoist master? He then asked, "Master Monk, do you know of Thundercloud Temple?" King Heng shook his head slightly, indicating that he did not know. Li Zijian contemplated this information. "It seems I must find an opportunity to visit the Purple Smoke Gate and speak with Ling Yanzi," he resolved silently. Li Zijian guessed the worst possible scenario and thought to himself, the abbot of the Liao River Temple likely deduced that Ling Yanzi and the others would bring this item from Thundercloud Temple, so he sent King Heng out into the mountains. As Li Zijian mulled over this silently, they had already passed through Chengxiao Gate's Helen Prefecture. They landed in the mountains at the other end of the prefecture and took a brief respite. Li Zijian harnessed the power of his eye technique and noted the swirling snow chi as he surveyed the landscape. He then said softly, "This should be the place. We just crossed Mount Quanwu, and ahead lies the Helen Mountain Range, where the earth veins converge and several types of water veins described in the Chilling Snow series meet." The purpose of this trip was a mix of both truth and deception. On the surface, Li Zijian was here to gather cold water. Li Xuanxuan wore a gray coat and followed behind with a stern expression. King Heng gazed at the beauty of the mountains and rivers before him, exclaiming, "Jiangnan is indeed rich in water veins." Li Zijian nodded in agreement, then turned to Li Xuanxuan and said respectfully, "Granduncle, you've also read the Chilling Snow series while on the way here. The Helen Mountain Range is vast. We should split up to search for it. We might find it sooner that way." Li Xuanxuan nodded at the suggestion. Li Zijian then looked at King Heng and said, "Although the spiritual energy in the Helen Mountain Range isn't particularly strong, and there are no famous spirit items or demonic creatures, there may still be some roaming devil cultivators. I would appreciate it if Master Monk could keep an eye out for them while my granduncle and I scout the area." "Sure," King Heng replied. Seeing that Li Zijian was acting thoughtfully and methodically, Li Xuanxuan nodded approvingly before choosing a direction to start his search. After watching him leave, Li Zijian turned to King Heng, saying, "Master Monk, please keep an eye on my family's elder while I head to Hengdong Prefecture." King Heng nodded in agreement and offered him a few words of advice. Li Zijian then rode the wind northward, passing through the two large mountains of the Helen Mountain Range, as he made his way to Hengdong Prefecture of the Hengzhu Dao Gate. As soon as he flew out of Helen Prefecture, he was greeted by a vast plain that was peppered with clusters of buildings and pavilions of various sizes. Hengdong Prefecture was a large place with millions of inhabitants, overseen by Hengzhu Dao Gate for many years, making it one of the most affluent prefectures in Yue State. After flying for a while and taking in the view of the expansive and fertile fields around him, Li Zijian felt puzzled. Hengzhu Dao Gate has no immortal mountain. He wondered aloud. As he was contemplating this, a figure approached from the front, gliding effortlessly on a cloud. Dressed in white adorned with gold and red cloud patterns, the person had thin lips and large eyes below long brow bones that set him apart from typical Jiangnan people. "Greetings, fellow Taoist. I am Bai Chengwan from the Hengzhu Dao. May I ask which sect or gate you represent?" Bai Chengwan's deep eyes and sharp nose made it difficult to read his expression. After scrutinizing Li Zijian from head to toe, he quickly deduced that Li Zijian did not belong to any of the 3 sects or 7 gates. However, he chose to phrase his question diplomatically. "Li Zijian of the Qingdu Li family. I am a humble cultivator from Moongaze Lake," Li Zijian replied warmly. Bai Chengwan's surprise was evident as he nodded in acknowledgement and said, "Ah, the Li family. I saw the surprisingly clear aura in your eyes and thought you hailed from a certain Dao lineage in Wu State." Li Zijian humbly downplayed the compliment, and Bai Chengwan continued politely, "Have you traveled far to visit us? What brings you here? I've heard that the Hengzhu Immortal Dao possesses the tranquil purification technique, which can eliminate inner demons and resolve mental burdens. I have an elder who is plagued by his own inner demons, so I've come to seek a cure," Li Zijian replied earnestly. Bai Chengwan was clearly experienced and was not surprised by such a request. "I have no issue with helping out another fellow Taoist, but I must clarify one point first." He paused before continuing in a serious tone. "The tranquil purification technique is not a superior immortal method. It's only a grade 5 cultivation technique and might not be effective for some inner demons. If you seek a cure, you must prepare for that possibility, fellow Taoist. Of course, I understand that some limitations exist," Li Zijian replied matter-of-factly. Bai Chengwan nodded, then apologized for being blunt as he went on to explain. "Over the years, people who were not cured by the spell have blamed the disciples who performed it. Some even blamed the Hengzhu Dao. Our Dao has faced criticism over the years, so we have no choice but to exercise extra caution." Seeing Bai Chengwan's demeanor, Li Zijian felt more positive about him. This Hengzhu Dao is quite different from Azure Pond. It surpasses all the other gates in the northern part of Yue State. That's truly rare. After clearing the air, Bai Chengwan warmed up a lot more, smiling as he asked, "This is your first time visiting Hengzhu Dao, right?" "That's correct," Li Zijian replied. Bai Chengwan explained, "The Hengzhu Dao has a long history. Over generations, we have been known simply as Hengzhu Dao. However, some busybodies later began categorizing various institutions into sects and gates, which led people to refer to us as Hengzhu Dao Gate. This term gradually became widespread, making it difficult to change." He looked somewhat frustrated as he continued, "The Taoists from the north all refer to us as a Dao sect. In truth, it is not so. My Hengzhu Dao cannot be compared to Azure Pond or Golden Feather. Although we all follow the Purple Mansion Golden Core Dao, Hengzhu Dao follows the path of ancient cultivation." Chapter 505, Hengzhu Dao, II. Li Zijian listened attentively as Bai Chengwan continued explaining in detail. To be honest, the cultivation methods of my Dao are closer to those of the great Ziyuqi Temple in the east. Both Hengzhu Dao and Zikui Dao were established many years ago as sub-mansions of the Moonlight Immortal Mansion. He chuckled lightly and said, because of this, the great Ziyuqi Temple is also facing the same situation and is frequently referred to as the Zikui Dao Gate. The Taoists there are much more ferocious. They'll give anyone who referred to them with the wrong name a good beating. Li Zijian nodded thoughtfully, noting that Bai Chengwan seemed to care a lot about speeches. He then looked at the faces of those under the rule of Hengzhu and praised, your esteemed Dao is indeed quite ancient. Don't mention it, Bai Chengwan replied sadly before changing the subject by asking, could you please stay for a few days? I need to return to set up the formation and prepare the necessary pills. Of course, how many spirit stones will that be? Li Zijian replied, cupping his fist. Bai Chengwan remained polite, but his price was firm. Only 50 spirit stones will do, he replied. Li Zijian felt a twinge of pain at the cost but had no choice but to nod in agreement. He took out 25 spirit stones from his storage pouch as a deposit before taking to the wind again. Once outside the Hengzhu's territory, Li Zijian grew anxious, unsure of how to bring this up to Li Xuanxuan. His granduncle had been in a position of power for a long time, and although he now bore the weight of spiritual turmoil, he still looked intimidating whenever he wore a stern expression on his face. Upon landing in Helen Mountain Range again, Li Zijian took out the jade pendant and tried locating his granduncle and the monk. However, the distance between them was probably too great, so he could not pinpoint his exact location. After circling around, he finally found them. He saw Li Xuanxuan standing by a small hill, silently casting spells, while King Heng stood beside him, guarding him. Li Zijian approached and scanned the terrain with the secret technique in the Chilling Snow series. He felt a rush of joy and exclaimed, so there is indeed cold water hidden in the water vein underneath here. The two performed a series of hand seals and worked together for a while, causing the ground to tremble slightly as a crack as big as a hole, the size of a baby's mouth, was created in it. Shimmering blue water surged forth, and Li Zijian quickly took out a jade bottle to collect it. It's forest cold water, capable of nourishing true essence with cold qi, he remarked. This spirit water of heaven and earth, while not particularly rare, was located at the intersection of the earth veins. Compared to the heavenly pure essence, it hardly measured up to it. Yet for Li Zijian it was a treasure, could be used to refine true essence and practice the slaughter Jun Kui light. He stored it away carefully, feeling his mood improving significantly. A rare smile also appeared on Li Xuanxuan's face as he suggested, I'm lucky to have found it so quickly. It's only been a day, we can find some more to keep at home. Li Zijian apologized first, then got on his knees and said, I've heard that Hengzhu Dao has methods to exorcise demons. Why don't we go and take a look first, then come back to search for more? Li Xuanxuan glared at him and shouted, no, what's the big deal? I'll just take 2 pills before drawing talismans as I usually do. That has always worked. Li Zijian gritted his teeth and said firmly, I have already flown to Hengdong Prefecture and paid the fee earlier. Please come with me, granduncle. You. It was only at this moment that realization dawned upon Li Xuanxuan. He was too stunned to speak for a moment before finally exclaiming, I can't believe you and Ming are teaming up against me. Li Zijian simply bowed his head and replied, I was too impulsive. If granduncle refuses to go, everything will be wasted. Of course, Li Xuanxuan understood what Li Zijian was trying to say. After a long pause, he finally said, don't do that again. He glanced at Li Zijian, then launched into a long-winded lecture about his father, Li Yuanyuan, then his grandfather, Li Xuanling, and finally recounted how frugal Li Tongye was when he was still alive, who was too cautious to spend even a single spirit stone. Letter 1E5F. Li Zijian listened silently until he finished speaking before saying, if great-grandfather were alive, he wouldn't want to see you torturing yourself like this. Li Xuanxuan stopped talking immediately and flew in silence for a while. Finally, he murmured, I didn't notice it back then. If only I could go to Zhenhui Temple in my younger brother's place. He turned his head, his aged face stained with tears. Li Xuanxuan, I will never say another word. The old man covered his face and continued lamenting. I owe him too much. I owe him too much. If Brother Ling were alive, he would have reached the Foundation establishment realm by now. Unlike me, I am useless. As a result, your father died right in front of me and I fled alone. How can I face you? How can I face him? It would be better for me to die. Li Zijian was moved and tried to comfort him, saying, but our family is doing a lot better now. King Heng, who was standing nearby, had always been an empathetic person. Hearing the old man's distress, he thought to himself, I always thought Li Xuanxuan was a pedantic and stubborn old man. I never realized there was such a story behind him. Clearly, my cultivation is still lacking. The 3 of them rode the wind toward the territory of Hengzhu Dao. Bai Chengwan quickly approached, sweeping his gaze over the 3 men before eyeing King Heng warily. His tone turned somewhat cold as he asked, where are you from, Master Monk? Confused by his attitude, King Heng replied, I used to be a Buddhist cultivator from the north, but I'm now a guest cultivator of the Li family. guest cultivator of the Li family. Bai Qingwan's expression darkened, but fortunately he did not show hostility immediately. He merely continued coldly, "Ah yes, Moongaze Lake is near the Great River. I supposed it isn't surprising that the Li family would take in a few monks." Sensing the tense atmosphere, Li Zijian quickly clarified, "This is Master Monk Kingheng from Liao River Temple. He practiced in Mobai and followed ancient Buddhist cultivation techniques, strictly adhering to the precepts. Please forgive any misunderstandings." Bai Qingwan realized his mistake, and his expression finally softened as he sighed and apologized. "I was too impulsive. I'm truly sorry." With a mournful face, he continued, "Many years ago, Murongzia traveled south, wreaking havoc and eating people everywhere. He even killed my eldest sister. My ancestor fought valiantly, alarming the Azurpan sect to intervene, but in the end, nothing came of it." Bai Qingwan gritted his teeth and added, "2 of the 3 Purple Mansion's realm cultivators from my family were dispatched, yet we were still humiliated." Master Kingheng then mumbled quietly, "The Murong family. They seem to practice the compassion dharma form. Compassion my ass." Bai Qingwan appeared to be offended by that comment and seethed with anger, saying hatefully, "That Murongzia killed my eldest sister. He even allowed her soul to appear and persuade my ancestor. Can you believe such a thing is possible in this world?" Li Zijian felt a pang of grievance at this revelation, secretly astonished by the strength of the Murong family. Hengzhu Dao's Purple Mansion realm cultivator actually endured such humiliation. Bai Qingwan sighed, then apologized again for letting his emotions get the better of him. He took out 5 shimmering golden pills from his chest pocket and then said softly, "Please prepare yourself, fellow Taoist." He then pulled out a jade knife and explained in a dull tone, "These are body pills that correspond to the 5 acupoints of the mind. It is part of the ancient cultivation method. I'll cut open your skin and flesh, insert the pills, and then use a secret technique to seal the wounds." Noticing the surprised expressions on the faces of those around him, he explained, "These pills are engraved with tiny formations. When you enter my Tao's tranquil profound conversion formation shortly, they will dissolve naturally and help eliminate your inner demons." Chapter 506, Zijai leaves the sect. Come with me, senior. Bai Qingwan glanced at Li Xuanxuan, estimating that he was over 100 years old. He called out to the elder and led the 3 of them down. The mountain gate of Hengzhu Dao was underground, with a cliff-like entrance in the prefecture where cultivators came and went. Hengzhu cultivators utilized an ancient form of flying, distinct from the current method of riding on the wind, allowing them greater flexibility in their movements. The mountain gate of Hengzhu was known as the Blessed Land of Hengzhu, a site that was established by ancient cultivators. Bai Qingwan did not take the 3 into the main area, but instead led them to a hole in the wall that opened into a small secret chamber. "It's going to hurt quite a bit since we're cutting into your flesh. Please bear with it, senior," he instructed. With a jade knife in hand, Bai Qingwan prepared to make the necessary incisions. Li Xuanxuan, having endured much in his life, was naturally able to withstand the pain. He removed his clothing, allowing Bai Qingwan to make cuts on his face, chest, and back. The acupoints were sealed to stop the bleeding before inserting a golden pill into each of the wounds. Li Xuanxuan grunted softly as Bai Qingwan gently stroked his back. The 5 cuts, each about the size of a baby's mouth, slowly closed. Bai Qingwan then led him further, opened the secret chamber, and instructed softly, "Senior, please go in and sit cross-legged. Wait for the formation to activate." Li Xuanxuan nodded and stepped inside obediently. As the heavy door slammed shut, Bai Qingwan turned to the 2 remaining companions and whispered, "You 2 should wait here for 3 days and don't go out. My people are still upset about what happened in the past. If Master Monk wanders around, it might cause trouble." Kingheng nodded, watching Bai Qingwan leave, and then sighed softly. "Murong, how could he do such a thing?" Li Zijian glanced at him and replied, "Isn't he always like that? He is proud of the paradise in his belly and forces you to be grateful after he finishes eating you." Kingheng fell silent and looked as though he had a stomach full of words to share. After a long pause, he said, "When I was 8 years old, the abbot was good friends with a Buddhist cultivator from Yan State. He used his divine ability and gave me a tour of his belly. I saw a shimmering pool, merits flowing like water, golden sand spreading across the ground, and colored glaze forming steps. The lotus flowers were as large as wheels, in the colors of blue, red, white, and purple, while countless birds and beasts chanted the Buddha's name, seeking truth. The people were joyous, free from suffering, trouble, disaster, or evil. It was quiet and serene." The monk appeared lost in thought as he continued, "The Taoist sects regard this as devil cultivation, but I can't discern right from wrong. The Buddhist cultivators of Zhao State seek the ultimate truth and strive to establish a Buddhist state on earth, while those of Yan State relieve suffering and create a paradise within themselves. The Buddhist cultivators of Yan State enable thousands to find bliss after death, and those in Zhao State alleviate suffering in life, yet ancient cultivators like me simply continued ringing the bell and preaching in the temple. Every time the Yan and Zhao states' Buddhist cultivators arrived, the people of Liao River flocked to them, leaving thousands of houses empty. Everyone was smiling and happy, while ancient cultivators like me remained in the temple planting vegetables. The host said that using divine abilities to confuse and control the people is an unorthodox practice that will prevent one from becoming the revered one. But I clearly practice Buddhism for the people. As long as the people are happy, I will do it. I can use my divine ability to make unpalatable steamed buns seem like delicacies and simple clothes appear rich and luxurious. But if I focus solely on whether I can become the revered one and ignore the people's needs, how can I be considered a great person? Fellow Taoist, if you come across a mortal in great pain, would you cast a spell to relieve their suffering? He asked. Li Zijian frowned and replied, of course I would. King Heng's usually gentle face betrayed a hint of fear as he murmured, if there are true paradises within the Belis and Buddhist state on earth, why should the people of Liao River be drowned in suffering? Li Zijian was taken aback by the sight of King Heng sweating profusely, his pallor indicating sheer terror, and even his legs were trembling slightly. The golden light that had previously coiled around him dissipated, now replaced by swirling rings of colorful light that were emanating from behind his head. Fearing that King Heng might suddenly shout, I've been enlightened, and transform into a Yan state Buddhist cultivator with a paradise in his belly, Li Zijian quickly made a decision. He struck King Heng on the back and shouted, Monk King Heng. Using the pine snow true essence, he sent a wave of cold through King Heng's body, causing him to cough up black blood. The colorful light behind his head vanished as if startled, and his eyes immediately cleared. The monk closed his eyes and began chanting a sutra shakily. After a long while he said, Thank you, fellow Taoist. However, after expressing his gratitude, he panted heavily, narrowed his eyes and murmured, My Liao River enjoys a bountiful harvest every year, and the people live better than those in Yan and Zhao states. Yet the rich and the poor remain unhappy. The abbot told us not to be bothered by such matters. His expression turned somber, and he no longer showed signs of changing to another Dao lineage, yet he could not hide the anguish on his face. But how can I not be bothered when the wailing cries of the Liao River shook the heavens? Azure Pond Sect, General Affairs Hall. Li Zijian soared through the air with colorful lights beneath his feet before landing on the peak of the mountain. As a Qi cultivator, he was required to undertake a mission every 10 years. He had already come 7 times in the last decade, but had yet to find one he wanted. I won't have many years left to wait if I still can't find a suitable one this time. The Azure Pond Sect did not have many disciples who were truly part of a peak, making it often difficult to encounter fellow cultivators of the same faction in the mountains. Only in the General Affairs Hall could one witness a bustling scene. Stepping inside, Li Zijian found many cultivators chatting and laughing together. Kingsui Peak was not particularly popular, and since Li Zijian seldom ventured out, he did not really have friends. He scanned the hall and noticed several bounty hunts that either required targets to be captured or killed. Although the rewards for such missions were generous, Li Zijian never accepted any. His family was in Moongaze Lake, and he dared not offend anyone. After skimming through requests related to slaying demons and various missions that required one to travel across the 4 seas or to the northern and southern borders, he finally spotted a few local missions concerning the search for spirit items in Yue State. The first one that caught his attention read, Supreme Yin Moonlight. Those who find it will receive 30 great merits and 3 essence-gathering pills. Heavenly Pure Essence. Those who find it will receive. A long list of rewards followed. Li Zijian sighed as he considered them. Such missions were often impossible to fulfill, so he quickly moved on and found a few entries at the bottom that involved long-term assignments. Market in Libu Prefecture. Guard, gather Qi, approximately 5 years. While others viewed such missions as troublesome and a waste of time, Li Zijian found them appealing. Overjoyed, he quickly removed the jade pendant hanging at the side of the post. So what if it takes some time? This is a perfect opportunity to return home. I can receive a talisman, take a pill, and help out a little. He closely inspected the removed jade pendant, only to discover a name written on the back of it. It turned out it had been hanging for too long without being claimed, so it had been assigned to Lingdu Peak. Chapter 507, Zijian leaves the sect II. Lingdu Peak was weaker than Kingsui Peak, with its peak master reaching only the Qi cultivation realm. Li Zijian sighed with regret. He stared at the jade pendant in his hand for a moment before making up his mind. He took off on a rainbow, guiding the colorful light through the mountains for a while until he soon spotted the low and short Lingdu Peak. Upon arriving at the mountain, he inquired about the peak master, who hurried out to greet him. Yu Fuyu greets fellow Taoist. I am Li Zijian of Kingsui Peak. Yu Fuyu was short and stout. Li Zijian had heard some rumors about him. He was a cultivator from the Yu family. However, due to various scandals associated with the family, Yu Fuyu's branch had long been extinguished, leading him to sever ties with the Yu family and live a humble life. Ah, Li family of Qingdu, your reputation precedes you, Yu Fuyu remarked humbly. When Li Zijia explained the purpose of his visit, Yu Fuyu immediately replied, that's not a big problem. He then took out another jade pendant and handed it to Li Zijia, who nodded politely and expressed his gratitude. Not wanting to linger any longer, he made his way back to the General Affairs Hall to complete the necessary procedures before returning to Kingsui Peak. As soon as he landed, Yang Xior approached, cradling a swaddled bundle in her arms. Li Zijia gently embraced her and said softly, I've just accepted a mission from General Affairs and will take Hutyr back with me. Yang Xior held the child close, saying nothing. Li Zijia felt guilty but said softly, Hutyr must not remain in the sect no matter what. He belongs to my Li family, not to Azure Pond sect. Tears welled in Yang Xior's eyes as she replied, I understand, but he's only 1 year old. Having to leave us fills me with reluctance and worry. Despite saying that, Yang Xior would be even more worried about keeping him in Azure Pond sect. She placed Li Chenghui into Li Zijia's arms, then removed the jade pendant she wore around her neck and tied it around the child. With that, she finally said, please take care of yourself out there, my dear. Li Zijia nodded, planting a kiss on her smooth forehead as he whispered, take care of yourself in the sect too. The couple had already planned this long ago. They exchanged a few intimate words before Li Zijia gathered his belongings and took flight, leaving Yang Xior in a poignant silence. Soaring through the layers of clouds, Li Zijia activated a jade token and passed through the Heavenly Essence Dao Spirit formation. After a brief flight, Ximen County came into view. Ximen was the largest prefecture in Yue State and the foundation of Azure Pond. As Li Zijia departed from Azure Pond, he felt his spiritual energy wane 2 or 3 times. Yet he flew faster on the rainbow, feeling an exhilarating sense of freedom. It's been 20 years, I'm finally out here again. The scenery below rushed past him like a blur, and Li Zijia, eager to reunite with his family, quickened his pace. Qingdu Peak. Li Qinghang landed on Qingdu Peak where Li Wuxiao was already waiting. The black-clad man bowed and respectfully reported, I have gone north to investigate. There is indeed a group of devil cultivators stationed in that temple. They seem to be setting up a formation and have been cultivating there for some time. Among them, there are 2 in the late-stage Qi cultivation realm, 6 in the middle stage, and 3 in the early stage. They all seem to work well with each other. Li Wuxiao paused before adding, I didn't want to spook them, so I didn't get too close. I only observed strange black clouds forming above that place. It seems like something is going on there. Li Qinghang nodded, contemplating for a moment before saying, I'll go and take a look from a distance. Li Wuxiao hurriedly followed her as they both rode the wind and took flight, with Li Wuxiao leading the way. Unexpectedly, as they exited their territory, a middle-aged man appeared before them, flying at an astonishing speed straight toward them. Li Qinghang quickly drew her Duruo spear, eyeing the middle-aged man warily. May I ask why you are stopping us, senior? The middle-aged man, dressed in golden robes that were adorned with white cloud patterns, had an unassuming appearance. A sword hung at his waist, and his Dharma robe was so lavish that Li Qinghang could not gauge his cultivation level at first. The man glanced at Li Wuxiao, causing him to feel a chill down his spine. He felt as though the man could see through his true form. Li Qinghang grew vigilant and instinctively stepped back. However, the man remained silent and reached out to Li Qinghang without drawing his weapon. His hand, pale as jade, suddenly loomed large before them, emanating a vague pulling force that captivated their spiritual senses, making it difficult to look away. Rumble. Since Li Qinghang had been on guard and gathering power in her hands, a bolt of purple lightning split the air. Underneath Li Wuxiao's black robe, 2 shadows silently emerged, their presence barely noticeable. A thunder cultivator, huh? The middle-aged man remarked casually. He brought his fingers together and instantly dispersed the purple thunderstrike, revealing his cultivation level. Surprisingly, he was at the peak of Foundation Establishment realm. Even without activating his immortal foundation, Li Qinghang and Li Wuxiao were already filled with dread. The middle-aged man's shimmery golden eyes revealed that he had clearly mastered a perception technique before. Though Li Wuxiao's tail hooks were devious, he spotted them right through the shadows. With a swift motion of his golden sleeve, he struck Li Wuxiao, leaving him pale with shock. Seizing the opening that Li Wuxiao had created, Li Qinghang's eyes filled with a fierce purple light. Her jade armor glowed with crackling purple lightning, and parting her vermilion lips, she spat out a speck of purple light which rapidly expanded to the size of a fist, radiating a brilliant white glow. Swoosh. Crackle, complex purple lines manifested in the air, unleashing an overwhelming aura of destruction. The middle-aged man's expression shifted slightly, and he remarked with a hint of appreciation, looks like Li Tongya has a successor. Li Qinghang was slightly puzzled, yet refused to be distracted. She directed the profound thunder toward the man, and quickly pulled away from him with Li Wuxiao, propelling purple lightning backward for several li. The middle-aged man in golden robes made no attempt to evade or chase them. Instead, he stared at the thunder talisman before him with keen interest. He finally touched the long sword at his waist, exhaling softly before drawing it from its sheath. Boom! A brilliant white light erupted in the sky. The thunder roared like an avalanche, shaking the lake and causing rocks on the nearby mountain to tumble. The white thunder turned into dense purple lightning, cascading down like a waterfall in a show of power. Clang! A brilliant sword light cleaved the thunder waterfall, splitting it into two easily. The middle-aged man strolled forward leisurely, performing a hand seal. "Disperse," he commanded with a smile. The thunder in the sky and the turbulence in the lake dissipated like mist. Li Qinghang and the others had already reached the foot of the mountain when the middle-aged man altered the spell in his hand and whispered softly, "Come." Suddenly, they felt their bodies freeze, the wind around them spiraling out of control. Li Qinghang made their escape with the blood escape technique, halting just a step away from the mountain gate. The middle-aged man in gold used an escape spell too and effortlessly closed the distance, reaching them in just 2 strides and fixing his gaze on Li Qinghang. This is no ordinary Peak Foundation establishment realm cultivator. He is likely close to ascending to the Purple Mansion realm. He must be a direct descendant of one of the 3 sects. The spells he uses are definitely not of grade 3 or 4. He's truly a significant figure. Fei Wangbai, who was defeated in just 20 or 30 moves, flashed through Li Qinghang's mind. She quickly regained her composure and said softly, "Li Qinghang of Qingdu Greet Sr., which sect do you hail from?" He raised his eyebrows with a smile and replied, "Li Tongya truly taught his junior well. What a thunder talisman. Had I just entered Foundation establishment realm and been caught off guard by that move, I might have sustained some serious injuries." The middle-aged man regarded Li Qinghang with interest and continued, "As for me, I am Zhang Yun, just a swordsman from Jiangnan. Today I am here to look after you and is taking the opportunity to visit the Li family." Chapter 508, Inquiries I. He's from the Golden Feather Immortal Sect. Upon hearing that his surname was Zhang and taking in the attire he wore, Li Qinghang immediately understood that Zhang Yun wanted to remain incognito by referring to himself as a swordsman of Jiangnan, so she chose not to expose him. Zhang Yun, the name was familiar, and combined with his tone, it immediately brought someone to mind. When Li Tongya infiltrated the Snake Demon Cave dwelling back then, he had to share the spoils with a swordsman named Zhang Yun. Zhang Yun picked the Snake Demon's Inner Core and the Blood Dharma Manual, while Li Tongya received the River Mountain Sutra and the Duruo Spear that she still wielded today. Li Qinghang deduced that this was likely the same Zhang Yun from years past. Now 70 or 80 years later, he was about to reach the Purple Mansion realm. This man is a direct descendant of the 3 sects. She cupped her fist and introduced herself. "Greetings, Senior. I am Li Qinghang. Li Tongya is my grandfather." "Ah, so you are the descendant of an old friend of mine," Zhang Yun replied, glancing at her while his golden robe fluttered in the wind. "Your immortal foundation is good. The thunder talisman is decent too. However, your spear technique is average. As for your escape techniques, spells, and secret arts, they lack substance. They might intimidate prominent clans since they are on par with those from the 7 gates. Yet against the Golden Feather and Azure Pond, they would struggle to prevail." Li Qinghang nodded in acknowledgement. Zhang Yun studied the 2 of them, standing with his hands behind his back, and then inquired, "Since you know of my friendship with your elder, why don't you invite me in?" After hearing this blunt request, Li Qinghang had no choice but to lead him inside. The Green Ox River Embrace formation on Qingdu Peak was likely just mere decoration in his presence. If he had intended to harm her, he could have done so long ago. Zhang Yun seemed oblivious to her concerns, or perhaps he simply did not care. He landed on the mountain, surveying the white irises that peppered the landscape, and said softly, "Li Tongya, what a pity. When I heard he had broken through to Foundation establishment realm, I thought we would eventually have a formal duel, but it seems that chance has passed." Li Qinghang remained cautious and held her tongue as she walked with Zhang Yun, who continued to muse aloud. "The younger generation taught by Li Tongya is quite impressive, far better than I was at their age. Although my 3 sons are gifted, they lack discipline since I'm always in long seclusions. They have grown into rather arrogant boys." Zhang Yun seemed to suddenly realize he had strayed from the topic and quickly added, "But I came here this time to remind you of one thing. Don't concern yourself with Zhang Hui's affairs or any other incidents occurring along the riverbank. I was sent to oversee this matter personally. I consider Li Tongya a friend, which is why I made this trip. Just take care of yourselves," he said. Li Qinghang thanked him softly, but Zhang Yun suddenly stopped, standing with his hands behind his back as he asked, "The River Mountain Sutra is still in your family's possession, correct?" After a brief pause, Li Qinghang replied, "Yes, Senior, that's correct." Although Zhang Yun was no longer a young man, he still had a playful demeanor. With a smile, he simply commented, "Great." Then his expression shifted to one of curiosity as he asked, "Is the Wanglin Blossom also from your family?" Li Qinghang was taken aback by the sudden question but quickly understood the implications. It said that the Wanglin blossoms have been extinct in Jiangnan for hundreds of years. The 3 sects monitor everything in Jiangnan closely. They must have heard about my family suddenly acquiring one. Letter 211 Alpha, yes, she replied respectfully. Zhang Yun's demeanor turned serious as he pressed on. Where did it come from? Li Qinghong's mind raced. Zhang Yun clearly understood the significance of the Wanglin blossom, which was why he was inquiring about it, yet her family knew little about it. This must be connected to the Wang family. Her family lacked critical information, and their status was not equal to that of the three sects. If she tried anything funny, it might backfire. Thus, Li Qinghong could only be as vague as possible in her response. It was left by a Taoist from the north. My family assisted him, and in gratitude he gifted us with the spirit root. Zhang Yun, who appeared somewhat frivolous moments ago, now looked very serious as he asked, what is their cultivation level and surname? Li Qinghong hesitated before replying, that senior is quite strange. He has a majestic aura, yet you can't discern his cultivation level. His surname is Wang. She was smart, choosing her words carefully. While Wang Zun treated her as an equal, she respectfully referred to him as a senior. Hence, her description painted the picture of a formidable northerner, prompting a frown from Zhang Yun. I had a feeling his surname would be Wang. He exclaimed, exhaling deeply, as realization struck. Wang family of Yinghua Wang, a Golden Core Realm clan. Shocked, he asked in confusion, that is an immortal clan from the north. How can someone from a small clan help him? My elder left behind a sword named Qingch which contains his sword intent. The senior merely wished to take a look at it, Li Qinghong explained softly. Understanding dawned on Zhang Yun. Ah yes, that's indeed the only rather interesting thing about your Li family. Where is the sword? It has been taken by my brother on his trip to the south, she replied. Zhang Yun could only give up. He nodded, acknowledging the situation, then suddenly chuckled softly, saying, this is your family's opportunity, but don't overthink it. Wang family of Yinghua is most afraid of being tainted by worldly karma. The fact he bestowed this spirit root upon your family means he has already calculated everything and ensured that your paths will not cross again. Li Qinghong raised an eyebrow slightly at his words, and Zhang Yun's clear eyes indicated he had seen through the calculations at play. She sighed inwardly. The direct descendants of the Golden Feather sect are indeed difficult to deal with. Unbeknownst to her, Zhang Yun felt a pang of regret as he thought to himself, so it was given by the Wang family of Yinghua. What a pity. Since the Wanglin blossom is immensely useful, I intended to come to the Li family to take this Foundation Establishment Realm spirit root for my own use at the sect. But it seems that I truly can't take it. After all, the gift from the Wang family of Yinghua represented a culmination of cause and effect. If Zhang Yun were to snatch it away after just a few years, the Wang family would inevitably be displeased. Although the Foundation Establishment Realm spirit root was precious, it was not essential for Zhang Yun, and he had no desire to offend the Wang family. He looked at Li Qinghong and suddenly asked, has your brother also reached the Foundation Establishment Realm? Li Qinghong did not dare to lie about such an obvious question and simply nodded. Zhang Yun smiled and murmured, interesting, interesting. 3 generations of a family with 5 Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. There must be something unusual about that. After a moment's reflection, he continued, Ning Tiaxiao also personally arranged the marriage. He must have discovered something about the Li family. Li Qinghong, does your brother also practice Boundless Ocean? Zhang Yun asked. Yes, Li Qinghong replied softly. Zhang Yun chuckled and nodded. Good, very good. As soon as he finished speaking, he ignored the Li family members entirely and enveloped himself in golden light. With that, he passed through their family's formation effortlessly and headed north on his own. Li Qinghong bowed her head and saw him off, watching as he walked away laughing. It was only then did she release a sigh of relief, her back damp with sweat. When she noticed Li Zicheng rushing into the yard, she said urgently, stop the news immediately. Don't let anyone know about Zhang Yun's visit. Li Zicheng nodded in agreement. Don't worry, Auntie. The fight just now happened too quickly. We only know that someone used a thunder spell. I'll inform everyone that you were practicing your spells. Chapter 509 Inquiries II, Hengdong Prefecture. This is far enough, fellow Taoist. There's no need to be so formal, Li Zijian said softly as he and his companions reached the edge of Hengzhou Prefecture. They cupped their fists to Bai Chengwan and added, let's bid each other farewell here. Bai Chengwan nodded and replied, if you pass through Hengzhou in the future, just mention my name and I will personally come to receive you. With a grateful smile, Li Zijian took his leave. Though Li Xuanxun still appeared old and frail, he now seemed much more energized, his eyes clearer, and a smile had returned to his face. This Hengzhou's tranquil purification technique is truly effective. The heaviness in my heart has lifted significantly, and I can wield my true essence more easily, he remarked. Li Zijian smiled and responded, that's a good sign. Granduncle, you must follow the instructions and avoid fighting for the next few years. Otherwise, it could interfere with your cultivation. Concerned that Li Xuanxun might disregard his advice, he quickly added, if a fight breaks out, those spirit stones we spent would all have gone to waste. I understand. Of course, I know. Li Xuanxuan replied, then mumbled trivialities. The atmosphere lightened significantly. King Heng chanted scriptures as they flew on, watching the old and young man chatter amiably. After arriving at the Helen Mountain Range, the two landed and began their separate searches for spirit items. They spent 2 months scouring the area, discovering only 1 or 2 minor spirit items with no significant finds. Li Zijian reunited with Li Xuanxuan at the appointed time, who looked increasingly relaxed over the past 2 months. The old man held a handful of plums, offering a few to Li Zijian. Amused, Li Zijian accepted them but remarked regretfully, "I never expected the spiritual energy of Mount Helen to be so poor. No wonder there haven't been any notable spirit items here in all these years." Li Xuanxuan took a few plums and handed them to King Heng, who received them with a smile. "There aren't even many demons in this Helen Mountain range. It can't compare to Mount Dali," Li Xuanxuan remarked. Li Zijian took out a map and suggested, "We still have plenty of time. Why don't we cross the prefecture and head to the mountain ranges of Quanwu and Dongli?" Li Xuanxuan naturally had no objections. The three of them quickly finalized their itinerary and set off to the east, preparing to head northeast to Quanwu Mountain Range first. "Quanwu Mountain Range is truly vast," King Heng remarked, gazing at the distant peaks faintly visible through the clouds. "When we traveled south, we crossed the western foothill of this mountain. Now, after making a huge round, we've only reached its eastern foothill." Seizing the opportunity, Li Zijian asked, "How does it compare to Mount Luoxia?" King Heng pondered for a moment before replying, "It's hard to make a direct comparison. There are also majestic mountains to the north, most of which are renowned for their high elevation and abundant spiritual energy. However, they differ from this mountain, which stretches continuously for tens of thousands of li. However, if we're only comparing spiritual energy, Mount Luoxia is undoubtedly the best. No other place can compare to it," he concluded with decisiveness. Mount Luoxia is without a doubt the location with the most abundant spiritual energy in the world, followed by the Grotto Heavens or Blessed Lands of various sects. The rest of the mountains are at the end of the list, King Heng stated with rare confidence. "What Dao lineage is associated with Mount Luoxia?" Li Zijian asked curiously. King Heng seemed momentarily lost in thought before he responded. "The name Luoxia comes from a true monarch who resides there. He forged his Dao through heavenly glow. It said all heavenly glows in this world must yield to his control. When the sun and moon replace each other, the first ray of light emerges from Mount Luoxia. Only when this first ray descends upon the mountain can various other heavenly glows be born. It is said there are 72 types of heavenly glows in the world, and 48 of them are the creations of this true monarch's divine ability." Li Zijian then inquired, "Since Mount Luoxia is the strongest Dao lineage in the north, I assume there must be more than one true monarch, right?" King Heng replied softly, "As for how many true monarchs exist in Mount Luoxia, how many are on the mainland, how many are overseas, and how many have departed this land, there have always been differing opinions, and no one knows for certain. Only in the past few hundred years have 3 true monarchs emerged and made their presence known. These are real Golden Core Realm true monarchs." Noticing that the Li family members were listening intently, he added, "But I've also heard rumors that the true monarch who forged his Dao with heavenly glow had became an immortal. Jiangnan Taoist cultivators often referred to these immortals as fairies or exalted immortals, while northern Buddhist cultivators often spoke of attaining enlightenment or achieving the Tao. However, Li Zijian understood that the term become an immortal, as used by King Heng, carried a much deeper meaning. "You're referring to Tao embryo?" he asked softly. "Yes," King Heng nodded with a slight envious expression on his face and continued softly, "I heard that he has already gained the immortal body of Tao embryo and become truly immortal. For as long as the heaven and earth still exist, and as long as the sun and the moon still shines, I wonder if he is still on Mount Luoxia." "What an impressive divine ability, Master," Li Zijian praised, but King Heng shook his head slightly and then asked, "Isn't there also an immortal in the south where you are from?" Seeing Li Zijian and the others looking puzzled, King Heng asked curiously, "Well, I heard that whenever the Purple Mansion Realm cultivators in your south break through to the Golden Core Realm, that person will send someone to collect metallic essence. Is that true?" Realization finally dawned upon Li Zijian and he replied, "Ah, so that's what you're talking about. Yes, it's true. Yes," King Heng exclaimed before asking, "What level of cultivation does this immortal have? How did he become an immortal? Where is his immortal mansion?" Li Zijian could only shake his head helplessly in response to the monk's series of questions and said softly, "To be honest, the 3 sects have always controlled the circulation of news in Jiangnan. It is said that they once destroyed books in a concentrated manner, blurring out a lot of information about the achievements of Foundation Establishment and Purple Mansion realms. My family has a shallow foundation, and I have to rely on overseas cultivators just to learn about Jiangnan, let alone any immortals." King Heng nodded thoughtfully and apologized. The group traveled day and night and flew for half a month before they finally arrived at the other side of Mount Quanwu, which was adjacent to Libu Prefecture in the north and Mount Dongli in the east. It was an area with fewer demons and much safer. They promptly dispersed to look for water veins and spirit items. Li Zijai left the sect and flew north quickly on the wind. On the way, he clumsily coaxed Huyer in his arms to sleep and settled in a small town. Although Cheng Hua was very obedient, he could no longer hold it back after lying in his arms for 2 days. He flailed around, wanting to go down for a walk. Li Zijai tried feeding him some fruits, but he refused to eat. I guess we'll rest for a while. Libu Prefecture is still a long way to go. By the time Li Zijai descended, the sky was already dark, but there were still lights flickering in the town below him. He stopped to look and found that the people in the town were gathered in a group, holding up fire torches. Chapter 510, Sidumo I. Li Zijai immediately sensed something was amiss and stealthily approached while concealing his presence. He saw a group of villagers gathered around a low stone altar where an old man in black stood, his face dark and sinister, holding a sword and muttering incessantly. The villagers below began chanting as well, their voices growing louder and louder. Black mist spread across the altar, causing Li Zijai to frown. A mere unrefined chi cultivator, yet he is putting on such a grand display. Li Zijai scoffed. The black-robed old man had chaotic true essence and weak energy, a clear sign of his origins as a rogue cultivator. In the cultivation world of Yue State, such people were at the bottom of the hierarchy. Li Zijai, being from a great sect, could see this clearly with just a glance. Yin Qi is everywhere. He must have acquired some kind of devil Dao legacy and used it to deceive the villagers so he could conduct blood sacrifices. As expected, the villagers below brought forward a young boy. The black-robed old man raised his sword, preparing to stab him in a ritual. Li Zijai watched on silently as the old man brought his sword down toward the boy, but when the blade touched the boy, it was as if it hit an iron wall. There was a sharp metallic clang that rang out, and the sword could not move any further. A flash of doubt crossed the old man's face. He scanned the surroundings with his spiritual sense but could not detect anything. How could a rogue cultivator like him see through the concealment technique of someone as skilled as Li Zijai? Finding nothing, the old man trembled and called out in a shaky voice, "Which senior is playing a joke on this humble one?" Rainbow light began to shimmer around Li Zijai as he revealed himself above the altar, staring at the old man. The black-robed elder took one look at him and was instantly terrified. He fell to his knees, trembling as he said, "This humble one is Yuan Hezhang. Greetings to you, immortal of the exalted sect." Li Zijai's hand, glowing with rainbow light, was about to strike him, but those words made him pause. Frowning, he asked, "You recognize my attire. You must be quite knowledgeable. Which Yuan family do you belong to?" Yuan Hezhang, who was shaking all over now, replied, "I am originally from the Yuan family of Mushroom Forest Plain, though I have not returned in many years." So, he is truly from the Yuan family of Mushroom Forest Plain. Li Zijai felt a bit awkward since this devil cultivator was somehow connected to his master, Yuan Tuan. In a deep voice he scolded, "Coming from such a great family, how dare you engage in such filthy deeds? You have utterly disgraced the Yuan family." With a flick of his hand, a stream of multicolored light appeared, swirling and flickering like a mirage. With a swish, it snatched away both the sword and the pouch from Yuan Hezhang's waist. This technique, called floating light gathering, was recorded in the Dawn Dew gathering technique and was a grade 4 spell. It was particularly effective at seizing Dharma artifacts and treasures. The multicolored light swept over everything cleanly, leaving Yuan Hezhang trembling with cold terror. The villagers below craned their necks, thinking Li Zijai had acted against the old man. They immediately broke into wails, begging for mercy, leaving Li Zijai. Li Zijai examined Yuan Hezhang and, confirming that he was indeed from the Yuan family, decided to be patient. "Explain yourself," he demanded. Just as Yuan Hezhang was about to speak, black winds suddenly whipped through the air. A massive creature, the size of a house and covered in feathers, descended with a booming laugh, calling out evilly, "Taoist Yuan, how is this year's blood offering?" Li Zijai's feet were already surrounded by rainbow light. He scanned the creature with his spiritual sense and quickly realized it was merely a chi cultivation realm demon at the 4th heavenly layer, far weaker than him, who was in the 6th heavenly layer. Feeling confident, he stayed in place, studying the demon. Yuan Hezhang, terrified, dared not reply. Instead, he shot the demon a look and muttered under his breath, "This is a lord from the exalted Azure Pond sect, Taoist Wu. Hurry up and pay your respects. A member of the Azure Kai Devil Gate." Taoist Wu was horrified, collapsing to the ground with a thud that shook the earth. His voice was muffled as he choked out, "This lowly demon greets the exalted immortal." Li Zijai, someone who disliked unnecessary conflict, felt his head throb as the situation became more complicated. Waving his hand, he said, "I have important matters to attend to. Spare me trouble and explain everything quickly so I can be on my way." Yuan Hezhang hurriedly explained, "Lord, I truly am from the main branch of the Yuan family, but my talent is lacking and I have only a single spiritual orifice. After 30 years of hard cultivation and many spirit resources, I have only reached the third stage of the embryonic breathing realm. In his youth, Yuan Hezhong had been diligent, but his poor talent meant he had to rely on the favors of his elders to obtain cultivation resources. Over time, he exhausted those connections, and the Yuan family no longer wished to pour resources into what they saw as a lost cause. Helpless, Yuan Hezhong left the family and wandered the world. Continuing where he left off, Yuan Hezhong elaborated, "Later, I found a temple run by rogue cultivators. I received a few legacies, but my cultivation still stagnated, and I had no further breakthroughs. Disheartened, I passed through here and found an embryonic breathing realm demon wreaking havoc, so I dealt with it. The villagers begged me for help, and I felt pity for them, so I stayed to protect them." Yuan Hezhong laughed bitterly and added, "This area is near Mount Quanwu, a place where many demons pass through. They regularly come here to feast on humans. So I pledged myself to a demon general, and in exchange for providing a special blood offering each year, the demons no longer harass the village." He proudly pointed to the villagers below him and smiled. "When I first arrived here, this place had just over 1,000 people. Now 50 years have passed, and there are more than 5,000. Li Zijai remained silent, glancing at the boy kneeling on the ground. The boy, his breath weak and uneven, clearly had been consuming medicine from a young age, likely the special blood offering that Yuan Hezhong mentioned. The child did not cry or make a fuss, remaining obedient. Nearby, the demon trembled with fear upon hearing that Yuan Hezhong was a disciple of the Devil Gate, not daring to lift its head. Yuan Hezhong, after finishing his explanation, cautiously glanced at Li Zijai, hesitating before adding, "The offerings to the immortal sect from this place. They have been supplied year after year without fail." Li Zijai glanced once more at the villagers below and understood that what Yuan Hezhong said was likely true. The rainbow light in his hand flickered slightly as he responded, "I see." He stood with his hands behind his back, silently and without any further interest in conversation. Then in an instant he soared away on the wind, his feet surrounded by swirling rainbow light, drifting off like an immortal being. Yuan Hezhong wiped the cold sweat from his brow and collapsed to the ground with relief. He sighed toward the demon beside him, who was equally terrified and trembling, muttering, "Thank the heavens. Luckily, it was a disciple from the Azure Pond sect. If it had been someone from the Yue cultivating sect, who is less tolerant, there would not have been any room for explanation. Not only would you and I have lost our lives, but even my great king would have been slain." Yuan Hezhong let out a sigh of relief and added, "If luck had truly been against us, what could we have done? If those sect disciples had slain the demon and left, these 5,000 villagers would have been nothing but food for a horde of demons, after you and I were killed." Li Zijai soared away on the wind, feeling a slight heaviness in his heart. Although he knew such things were common in Jiangnan, this was the first time he had seen it with his own eyes. After hearing Yuan Hezhong's explanation, he realized he was powerless to change the situation. At least it's better than overseas. After all, this land was once under the rule of an immortal mansion. Now the immortal sects, out of caution or perhaps moral scruples, refrain from overt wickedness. Even the Devil Gates have to put on a false front. Some Dao lineages here still uphold certain principles. Li Zijai let out a self-deprecating chuckle. If he had been in Yuan Hezhong's position, he likely would have handled it the same way. He realized how foolish it had been to have thoughts of killing him earlier. Li Zijai had far too much on his mind regarding his family's pressures to indulge in any further pity. Soon, he cast the matter aside, flying through the area around Mount Quanwu. Suddenly, the jade pendant at his waist grew warm, emitting a soft white light. Li Zijai was overjoyed and thought to himself, "One of my clan's brothers or elders must be nearby." Chapter 511, Sidumo II. Li Zijin and the others had been traveling through the mountains of the Quanwu Range for several days now. With King Heng leading the way, they had acquired a few spirit items and had encountered no Foundation Establishment realm demons and were merely wandering through the forest. Li Xuangshuan and another cultivator were performing incantations and surveying the earth veins. After some time, they found a clue near a deep pool. Li Zijin then remarked, "Granduncle, according to the descriptions and techniques from the Chilling Snow series, there should be a type of spirit water within this pool." Li Xuangshuan, holding a bundle of mountain fruits, sorted through them and handed Li Zijin a plum before nodding slightly. After performing some calculations with a hand seal, he said quietly, "We may need to wait a few more days. The water vein runs deep, and it will not be easy to retrieve the spirit water quickly." Li Zijin placed the fruit in his pouch and along with Li Xuangshuan continued casting spells, working together to draw out the spirit water. They alternated, one resting while the other maintained the spell. After about 5 or 6 days, a golden light finally appeared in the sky, descending rapidly. When the golden light landed, it transformed into a man dressed in radiant feathered robes, holding a golden ring. His aura was overwhelming, indicating that he had reached the Foundation Establishment realm. The moment he landed, the pressure from his presence made the group feel as though their faces were being cut by sharp blades. The The man glanced at the surface of the pool, his face expressionless, and he was clearly here for the spirit water. He held the golden ring in his hand and had a rather handsome face. His clothing with golden hooks, rings, and diamond-patterned robe immediately gave away his identity as a disciple of the Golden Tang Gate. "Greetings, Senior." The Li family members greeted, cupping their fists. The Golden Tang Gate cultivator looked down on them arrogantly, his expression showing a hint of excitement. After glancing at the three of them, he drawled, "Where are you three from?" "This spirit water now belongs to the Golden Tang Gate." Li Xuanxuan and Li Zijian exchanged glances, while King Heng frowned deeply and retorted, "But we were here first." Li Zijian quickly interrupted him and pulled him back, replying politely, "We are from the Li family of Qingdu Peak. Since Senior desires it, we will leave this pool to you." "No." The man's smile was cold and mocking as he said sharply, "You will retrieve the spirit water for me before you leave." Li Xuanxuan studied the man's face, finding it vaguely familiar. Then he suddenly recalled that they had crossed paths years ago when he had sought out Kong Yu to help move a mountain, only to encounter this same arrogant Golden Tang Gate disciple. Sidu Mo, this man had a notoriously bad temper. He had mocked Kong Yu mercilessly at the time, making fun of him for being from a small, insignificant family. Li Xuanxuan had not known the full story until then. Back then, Sidu Mo had been at the peak of Qi cultivation realm, but now he had just entered the foundation establishment realm. This kind of person is only relying on his family's connections. Li Xuanxuan cursed inwardly. Sidu Mo's face was full of contempt as he stared at Li Xuanxuan with an expression betraying his intense dislike. Li Xuanxuan quickly realized, damn it, he recognizes me. I have been dragged into this because of the Kong family. But what kind of grudge does he have against them for him to hate them this much? Sure enough, when Li Zijian politely responded, Sidu Mo only sneered and said in a low voice, "I remember your family. Years ago, my elders collected qi in your clan's territory. They lured a demon sparrow, causing quite a mess. Your ancestors were mortals back then. They probably even bowed before my elders back then." Li Zijian had thought at first that this man was merely a spoiled and rich young master, but after hearing that remark, he immediately realized that this was an enemy. The polite smile disappeared from his face, now replaced by a cold expression. Li Xuanxuan, though filled with anger, was even more perplexed. Where does this young man's deep hatred come from? This must be about more than the profound Peak Gate. He truly could not understand where Sidu Mo's deep hatred stemmed from, and the man's words were venomous and harsh, fueling the fire of Li Xuanxuan's anger. The elder's face had already darkened with displeasure. Sidu Mo coldly eyed Li Xuanxuan and spoke in a low voice, "That day we met in the wilderness. If I had known that you hideous old thing were from the Li family, I would have killed you on the spot." He gritted his teeth and continued viciously, "The Ren family and the Lu family made deals with a tiger, and in the end, your Li family wiped them out. It was indeed satisfying to watch. But because of your family's deeds, my mother fell into despair and took her own life. Now I have waited long enough for this day, to make your family suffer as my mother did." Letter 1D64D A ring, letter FF4 Omicron, letter FF42, y'all letter 1D412. Li Zijian stood frozen in shock, while King Heng's eyes widened in disbelief. Li Xuanxuan's mind buzzed as one image after another flashed before him, finally settling on a face that had long worried Li Xiangping and Li Tongya. "Jai Dengqi." Li Xuanxuan blurted out, You are the son of that Jai family woman." "Haha, exactly." Sidu Mo had not even finished his sentence when Li Zijian, having already understood the situation, grabbed King Heng's sleeve and in a flash of red light, launched himself into the sky, fleeing at great speed. Even Sidu Mo was briefly stunned before he roared in anger, just like Li Tongya's spawn, crafty like a snake. King Heng and Li Xuanxuan were still in shock, but as they realized what was happening, they prepared to follow. Just then, a golden light rose around the pool, sealing the area and trapping them inside. Sidu Mo sneered at Li Zijian's retreating figure and said, "Did you really think I was talking all this time for nothing?" In the distance, Li Zijian, who was enveloped in red light, was just about to break through the formation when a golden weapon, lying in ambush, shot forward, piercing him straight through the chest and pinning him to the ground. Blood splattered as the teenager fell to the earth with a heavy thud. The sight sent chills down Li Xuanxuan's spine. His mana-enhanced sight allowed him to see clearly as a blood-stained plum fruit rolled out of the boy's chest pocket, bouncing twice on the ground. The little one ran fast, but he fell to the Dinglin piercer and died a bit sooner. A flash of pleasure crossed Sidu Mo's face before he turned his attention to the two remaining men. His voice was icy as he said, "You old fool, you may have some experience, but my mother was Jai Dengyu. The head of the Jai family back then, Jai Dengqi, was my uncle. When Lu Sisian and Jayan slaughtered my Jai family, they thought my father had been killed, but they did not know my mother was already carrying me in her womb. I thought you would return the same way, but you kept twisting and turning, ending up in Mount Quanwu. I searched for so long, and now that I've found you, I won't let you all leave." His expression was cruel and ferocious, but there was a twisted joy in his voice, the kind that only comes from vengeance. Laughing maniacally, he said coldly, "I know how ruthless the Li family is, and Li Tongya was a Foundation establishment realm sword cultivator, so my mother never dared speak of this, raising me in secret. But now that I have established an immortal foundation, it is time to settle this grudge." Li Xuanxuan was in utter shock. His mind raced, his eyes reddening with anger as he tried to explain through gritted teeth. The destruction of the Jai family was due to the Ren and Lu families seizing the two mountains. It had nothing to do with my family. Nothing to do with you. Sidumo sneered. Since he was not in any hurry and felt certain of his victory, he could not resist arguing back. His voice filled with hatred as he said, "My Jai family had planted someone close to Lu Yunlu, and that Lu-stunged fool was consumed with jealousy over Li Tongya. He revealed everything. Who do you think you are fooling? That idiot. It was that idiot all along." Li Xuanxuan felt an icy chill sweep over him, making it hard to breathe. His chest burned with rage, and all he could think about was Li Zijian outside. The wound on his face began to crack, revealing a faint golden pill beneath. Blood began to flow from his 7 orifices, and the 6 old wounds on his body burst open, spraying blood everywhere. His eyes bulged, and he was rendered speechless. Suddenly, a hand rested on his shoulder, emitting a soft, warm golden light that quickly calmed his emotions and slowly healed his wounds. King Heng, with a slight bow of his head, spoke gently. "Elder, you are still not recovered yet. Please quell your anger. This humble monk is here. There is nothing for you to worry about." Chapter 512, Battle with Sidumo I. Boom. The golden formation trembled faintly, shaking the forest and causing leaves to fall like rain. A young man in white lay on the ground, facing the sky. Boom. Li Zijian listened silently, confirming that Sidumo had already engaged in battle with King Heng and had no time to focus on anything else. Only then did he press his hands against the ground and sit up. White light flowed through Li Zijian's eyes, but there was no sign of pain. He gathered his mana in his hands and, with a steady motion, grasped the radiant, golden Dinglin piercer and slowly pulled it out of his chest. The talisman he received before was the radiant snow pine ridge, which kept him calm at all times. Though the situation had been dire and the Dinglin piercer had struck quickly, Li Zijian had not reacted slowly either. His eyes, capable of piercing illusions and seeing through falsehoods, allowed him to calculate the trajectory of the Dinglin piercer quickly. Using the river crossing torrential steppe, he skillfully dodged its most dangerous points. Although the weapon had pierced through his body, it had not struck a vital area, leaving him with only a wound. As talisman chi circulated through his body, he pulled the piercer out without flinching and began to wonder. Even so, this Dinglin piercer is a Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifact. It seems really weak. Even if I avoided the vital point, it should have left me seriously wounded. Could it be that King Heng had intervened? While pondering this, the piercer was fully removed from his body. He wiped away the blood and examined the weapon. The Dinglin piercer was about 7 kai long, covered in ridges and shining with golden light. It struggled in Li Zijian's hands, trying to break free and fly into the sky. He had to use considerable effort to just hold on to it. After sealing the piercer with several spirit sealing techniques, Li Zijian was finally able to free his hands to heal himself. He applied some ointment on the wound, swallowed a pill, and sighed with relief as his strength recovered by 60%. The Dinglin piercer fluttered weakly in the air before falling to the ground, trembling slightly. Li Zijian's thoughts raced as he pondered to himself, "This is trouble. Sidumo is a direct descendant of the Golden Tang sect. I am not sure if King Heng will be able to handle him." The Quanwu mountain range, located in the center of Yue State, was several days' journey from Moongaze Lake, the Zhao family, or the Profound Peak Gate, making it impossible to call for aid. Li Zijian turned back to the golden formation, and white light appeared in his eyes. The brilliant light of the formation gradually blurred, revealing the scene within it. Boom! King Heng was wielding a bronze monk's staff, emitting golden light to resist Sidumo's Dharma artifact. His mana light was soft yet immense, while Sidumo's was sharp and intense. The clash of their golden lights echoed with thunderous force. As Li Zijian pushed his talisman chi to the limit, a figure cloaked in the mysterious spirit mist within the formation was also revealed. "That's second uncle," Li Zijian gasped. The black-robed middle-aged man stood cautiously at the edge of the formation, his face dark. In his hand, a green-white sword light flickered, growing stronger with each passing moment as he waited for a flaw in Sidumo's defense. So, it was him who intervened to protect me. Li Zijian let out a breath of relief, realizing why the Dinglin piercer's power had been so weak. He felt more at ease now and confidently began casting layers of spells, keeping the peculiar Dharma artifact pinned under his foot. Within the golden formation, King Heng steadied Li Xuanxuan, showing no signs of panic. As the formation activated, Li Yuanjiao's voice had already reached King Heng. King Heng's surprise stemmed not only from Sidumo's revelations, but also from the unexpected timing of Li Yuanjiao's intervention. With Li Yuanjiao silently intervening, King Heng no longer had to worry about Li Zijian. Though the blow Li Zijian suffered seemed severe, King Heng, with his knowledge as a Buddhist cultivator, did not consider it a serious concern. As a sharp golden light surged toward him, King Heng used his monk's staff to repel Sidu Mo's attacks, silently reflecting to himself, "He's indeed cautious, following us all the way here." Reletera Fuyafbutta agrov letterwina 6 although King Heng had some tricks up his sleeve, more than enough for survival but not for killing, he was not afraid of Sidu Mo and remained confident that he could protect both himself and Li Xuanxuan. Yet he still sighed at Li Yuanjiao's caution, thinking to himself, he was worried about alarming Sidu Mo, so he even deceived his own people. Since Senior Xuanxuan hasn't noticed anything, it's even less likely that Sidu Mo would suspect a thing. Sidu Mo tested with 2 attacks, but the monk before him remained as calm as still water, his defense unyielding like an immovable mountain. Sidu Mo sneered and taunted, "Found yourself a bald monk to play guard dog, eh?" Sidu Mo understood that the monk's methods were strange and was careful not to underestimate him. 3 golden shields floated around him, covering him completely while he held a saber, watching for an opening. After a moment's thought, he performed a hand seal and muttered, "Come." Outside the formation, the Dinglin piercer began to struggle violently, thrashing on the ground. Li Zijian had long been prepared for this and had covered the weapon with spirit-sealing talismans. He stomped down on it with his foot, brought his fingers together, and released a flash of cold light. Grade 4 spell, Slaughter Jun Kui Light. True to its reputation as one of the Li family's highest-graded spells, the white light burst forth, releasing a chilling energy that froze the Dinglin piercer solid, cutting off the flow of mana and suppressing it completely. Inside the formation, Sidu Mo's expression changed. Li Zijian, only at the Qi cultivation realm, should not have been able to resist his Dharma artifact, and should have already been killed by the Dinglin piercer. Now, with the weapon unresponsive, he felt deep unease growing within him, sensing things were slipping out of his control. Yet, Li Xuanxuan's earlier behavior had seemed completely genuine, and King Heng's shock had also been real. Sidu Mo, who had grown up surviving on his wits, could see through pretense, and now found himself hesitant and unsure. Meanwhile, Li Xuanxuan, seeing Sidu Mo's hesitation, began to piece things together based on King Heng's demeanor. A hint of relief crossed his face, which only made him look more pleased in Sidu Mo's eyes, adding to the latter's irritation. Sidu Mo's eyes flickered suddenly as he made up his mind. Pulled out a talisman from his robe, clasped it between his hands, and began to cast a spell. King Heng, naturally, could not just stand by idly. He quickly raised his bronze staff, focusing on protecting Li Xuanxuan from afar by disrupting Sidu Mo with bursts of golden light. However, his defensive nature made it hard to break through Sidu Mo's golden shields. Sidu Mo cast a mocking glance at King Heng before shaking his wrist and releasing 6 streams of light that landed on his own body. The tiny streams glimmered over his acupoint Sanju, Tongzilio, and Chenki, gradually lighting up his eyes with a golden glow. In this life-and-death confrontation, Sidu Mo was not foolish enough to announce his techniques aloud. However, Li Yuanjiao, who was still observing from the shadows, had read the Spirit Eye Perception Manual and recognized these critical eye acupoints. He realized Sidu Mo had sensed that something was amiss. What a shame. His Dharma artifact is formidable, and he hasn't shown any openings. Knowing he could not stay hidden much longer without being discovered, Li Yuanjiao seized this fleeting opportunity. His sword flew out of its sheath as he raced toward Sidu Mo, executing the Celestial Moon Slash technique. Clang! A sharp green-white light filled the air. Sidu Mo's spell was interrupted, yet he seemed more pleased than surprised. The golden saber at his waist, which had been accumulating power, suddenly shot forward as he laughed. I knew it. Li Yuanjiao's sword arc shifted, shattering Sidu Mo's golden shield, but was met by the saber chi he had been gathering for a long time. Internally, Li Yuanjiao couldn't help but admire Sidu Mo's slyness. What a cunning man. Sidu Mo's ability to stop his own spell midway and secretly charge his saber chi showed that he had anticipated Li Yuanjiao's move. It was possible that Sidu Mo had never cultivated perception techniques seriously and had only acted to lure out a hidden enemy. It really is you, Li Yuanjiao. Though Sidu Mo had forced Li Yuanjiao to reveal himself, the power of the Celestial Moon Slash technique still exceeded his expectations. His saber chi only managed to block it for a moment before shattering like brittle wood. Chapter 513, Battle with Sidu Mo II. Sidu Mo shouted, "Ha!" Before the words even left his mouth, 3 golden shields materialized before him while he instantly moved several zhang away, spitting out a small, round red pill. The pill spun once in the air and dissolved into smoke. The techniques of the Golden Tang Gate. Li Yuanjiao sighed as he watched. Sidu Mo had not yet had time to feel relief when he felt a cold sensation behind him. A grayish-green serpent dragon materialized, its jaws snapping toward his neck. Clang. Li Yuanjiao struck aside the 3 golden shields, but the serpent dragon was blocked by the light emitted from Sidu Mo's Dharma robes. Sidumo quickly formed a hand seal, sending out a burst of golden light that shattered the dragon. With a venomous tone, he growled, "Some celestial moon/technique, hardly impressive." But before he could even finish speaking, 3 more streams of silver light darted toward him, gleaming brilliantly like the moon. They spun and danced in the air, weaving through the gaps between his 3 golden shields, aiming for his upper, middle, and lower body. Sidumo was startled, and golden patterns appeared on his hands as he tried to grab the incoming light, but his grasp closed on nothing but air. The 3 sword lights moved too swiftly, slipping between his defenses like snakes slithering inside his robes. Unable to cast another spell in time, Sidumo could do nothing as the sword light struck his body. His golden robe once again emitted light, releasing a surge of white mist that dissolved the 3 sword lights that were aimed at him, forcing Li Yunjiao to withdraw his attack in vain. Sidumo let out a sigh of relief, now drenched in sweat, and spat sarcastically. Well, quite the sword technique. At the same time, deep green serpent dragons rose beneath Li Yunjiao's feet while sword chi churned in his hands. Inwardly, he felt helpless. I'm afraid I won't be able to take him down. My mastery of the threefold moonlight is lacking. Agile but not powerful enough. What a pity. Sidumo stepped forward, his hand performing seals as he cautiously engaged Li Yunjiao in back-and-forth attacks. Sword chi and saber chi clashed, producing resounding explosions. Kung Heng, not skilled in offensive techniques, stood nearby, his monk's staff emitting golden light within a 1 jang radius around him. Though he used the golden light to strike at Sidumo, it merely distracted him for a moment, failing to cause any real harm. The Golden Tang Gate has been in Sioux State for years, once a major power that frequently clashed with Azure Pond. Even though they've declined, their foundation runs deep and they're hard to deal with. Kung Heng knew it wasn't just the Golden Tang Gate. Even Sidumo himself was no easy opponent. Li Yunjiao had missed his chance for an overwhelming strike, and with his most powerful sword technique already used, he found himself unable to gain the upper hand. Sure enough, Sidumo scattered 2 of Li Yunjiao's sword chi with a wave of his hand and sneered. Is that all your family's swordsmanship has to offer? You were lucky enough to have a sword immortal as an ancestor, which barely elevated your family to a prestigious clan. You are nothing but a bunch of opportunists. While mocking him, Sidumo's hands did not slow down. He raised his Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifact to fend off Li Yunjiao, rapidly forming 6 seals in succession. Finally, he clasped his hands together, his ring finger hooking over the middle finger while his index fingers crossed, leaving the other 3 fingers pressed together. With a loud bang, golden light burst from Sidumo's palm, forming a small dagger about the size of a finger that darted into the air, circling once before streaking toward Li Yunjiao with the speed and force of lightning, shrieking as it cut through the air. Sidumo knew all about the Li family, but Li Yunjiao knew little about him. Feeling an intense sense of danger, Li Yunjiao's back went cold. Quickly, he slapped his pouch and summoned a large brown shield 6-stone cloud plate. The golden saber came too fast. Li Yunjiao didn't even have time to retrieve a talisman. He poured all his mana into the shield, and the deep green serpent dragon coiled around it protectively. Boom. A tremendous force hit his arm, and the 6-stone cloud plate shuddered under the impact. A sharp pain shot through his wrist as the golden light pierced through, forcing him to retreat with gritted teeth. The 6-stone cloud plate let out a mournful sound as a bloody hole appeared in Li Yunjiao's wrist. He had no time to assess the injury before the golden saber, having circled behind him, streaked back toward his heart. Sidumo, after releasing the golden saber, took only a moment to catch his breath before charging forward with his sword. He swung down with a sweep of golden light, while the 6-stone cloud plate, now with a small hole in it, struggled to block the cold, piercing advance of the golden saber. Li Yunjiao spun around, drawing his kinked sword to parry Sidumo's strike, barely managing to deflect the blow. The 6-stone cloud plate shot upward to block the golden saber. Creak. Though the golden saber was not as terrifying as when it first appeared, it still caused Li Yunjiao to stumble backward. He retreated several steps, shrouding himself in profound, patterned spirit mist, trying to put some distance between himself and the deadly golden saber that coiled like a viper, ready to strike again. Li Yunjiao braced himself, clutching a talisman and preparing to counterattack. But just as the golden saber was about to strike again, Kung Heng recited a mantra and the saber suddenly froze midair. Sidumo's face twisted with rage as he shouted out angrily, "You damned monk. Must you interfere?" With Kung Heng's intervention, Li Yunjiao had enough time to activate his profound pattern bottle, concealing his presence and disappearing from sight. Sidumo immediately grew cautious. Li Yunjiao was no ordinary Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator. If caught off guard, he could be dangerous. Scanning the area with a venomous gaze, Sidumo quickly performed another hand seal. The golden saber obediently returned to his hand and vanished. I should have mastered a perception technique. Wasting time on this golden blaze saber cost me. Otherwise, I could have killed all 3 of them today. Sidumo exhaled deeply, Knowing he had missed his chance, he was not willing to risk further conflict and exhaust himself. Then a sudden sense of impending doom gnawed at his heart. This is not good. He did not waste time on empty threats, simply raising his hand. In the forest, the formation flags rose from the ground, returning to his grasp as the golden formation vanished. Golden light surged beneath his feet, and several golden shields floated around him for protection. Tall and imposing, he spoke with a cold, ominous tone. "We will settle this another time." Before his voice had even fully faded away, Sidhu-mo had transformed into a streak of golden light and flew away at incredible speed, disappearing over the horizon in mere moments. Granduncle. Li Zijian hurried into the formation, calling out twice. Li Xuanxuan quickly pulled him into an embrace, carefully looking him over before letting out a long breath of relief. "You nearly scared me to death." Li Yunjiao's face was pale, the glow of the Qingque sword in his hand dimming as he sealed away the remaining sword intent. The hole in his wrist was large, revealing a glimpse of bone beneath. Without saying a word, he summoned a stream of water from the nearby pool, filling the wound before placing a hand over it, making it appear fully healed. Kung Heng, knowing this was merely a temporary fix, gently advised, "These wounds cannot be left untreated. Please use some healing pills and medicine to heal it as soon as you can, or it may hinder your future cultivation." Grateful for Kung Heng's help, Li Yunjiao's expression softened as he responded, "Thank you for saving me, Master Monk." Meanwhile, Li Xuanxuan, having checked Li Zijian's wounds, rushed to his son's side and carefully examined him. But with Li Yunjiao's foundation establishment realm cultivation, the elder could not tell how serious the injuries were. He could only mutter anxiously, "Oh dear, oh dear." Li Yunjiao glanced at him in surprise, the corner of his mouth curving slightly upward for a brief moment before turning back with a sigh of regret. "It is a pity. That man had quite the skill. I could not gain the upper hand. Second uncle." Li Zijian smiled and pulled out a gleaming golden artifact from his storage pouch, presenting it with both hands as he bowed his head respectfully. "That may not be the case." Chapter 514, Reunion I. Li Yunjiao took the Dinglin piercer from his hand. The Golden Tang Gate favored techniques for piercers, daggers, and sabers. This Dinglin piercer had a peculiar appearance and was about 6 kun long, resembling a thin stick with sharpened ends, designed for penetrating surfaces with precision. Gazing at Li Zijian, Li Yunjiao frowned and spoke in a deep voice. "We were fighting in the formation before. You should have left early instead of staying here. If I failed to defeat Sidhu-mo, at least you could still get away safely." Kung Heng was present, and Li Zijian did not dare claim he could see through the situation in the formation, so he simply nodded in response. Li Yunjiao's expression darkened as he instructed the others to bring forth the spirit water that was just within their reach. He whispered to Kung Heng, "I've been following behind all of you this whole time, so I know Sidhu-mo did not follow us all the way here. He flew straight to the edge of this pool, and seems to know that we are here." Kung Heng released his mantra and replied, "Are you suggesting that the man is acting on a Purple Mansion Realm Cultivator's Order benefactor?" Li Yunjiao's expression shifted as he considered the possibility. He was about 60% certain about it. Earlier, he had used the Qingque sword's intent, aiming to end the man's life for good. However, he quickly vanished. This made him even more convinced of his speculation. It may not be an The Purple Mansion Realm Cultivator of the Golden Tang Gate hasn't been seen in a long time, and most of its territory has fallen under the control of the UA cultivating sect. It's possible some force bears a grudge against my Li family and is secretly aiding him, Li Yunjiao said, his voice grave. Kung Heng fell silent for a moment before murmuring, "Maybe. It's the wrathful Dao lineage." As they spoke, the pool of water before them began to roll as if boiling, slowly parting to reveal a stream of white, crystal-clear spirit water that leaped out. It spun in a circle before filling up the jade bottle in Li Zijian's hand. Li Zijian's face was still somewhat pale, but he quickly exclaimed with joy, "Granduncle, it's pure essence spirit water." Li Xuanxuan hurried forward to take a closer look before nodding in approval. It is indeed the pure essence spirit water. With this, more people can benefit from the grade 3 spirit eye perception at home. This spirit water would significantly aid those who cultivated the spirit eye perception. After mastering the technique, he would also be able to find an explanation for any peculiar phenomena he encountered. Li Zijian carefully stored it away as Li Yunjiao urged, "We shouldn't linger, let's leave quickly." The group obeyed and rode the wind as they took to the skies. Li Yunjiao felt a mix of worry and unease when suddenly the jade pendants at their waists illuminated, emitting a gentle light. They all paused in surprise. Li Zijian asked curiously, could it be that Auntie was worried and followed us? No, Li Yunjiao shook his head. He had specifically asked Li Qinghang to stay behind and watch over the family. While he pondered this, a mysterious spirit mist enveloped him, momentarily hiding him from view. Just then, a burst of colorful light approached the group, revealing a young man riding a rainbow. He wore a black feathered robe, his black hair fastened with a jade crow. He held a swaddled bundle in his arms. He laughed heartily and greeted, "Zijai greets elders and brothers. I was just wondering who was here." Li Xuanxun nearly jumped with joy, exclaiming, "It's my Jir." Li Zijian blinked in surprise. He focused intently on the newcomer for 3 breaths, using the white qi in his eyes to detect any traces of illusion. When he found none, he gasped almost incredulously, "It's really third brother." Seeing Li Xuanxun rush forward, Li Zijai's face lit up with shock as he asked, "That's grandfather." He pulled Li Xuanxun closer, his voice filled with disbelief as he continued, "It's only been 20 years since I left. Why have you aged so much, grandfather? This is..." Li Xuanxun, now just over 80, appeared to be well over 100 years old. Li Zijai stared at him, dumbfounded. Li Xuanxun waved his hand dismissively, then looked at his grandson, beaming with pride as he praised, "Good, good." Li Zijian, who was standing behind, stifled a laugh before stepping forward and cupping his fist. "Zijian greets third brother. Why you?" Li Zijai's heart swelled with emotion, his eyes glistening with tears as he smiled and said, "My good younger brother. It's been 20 years since we last met, and you look like an immortal now." The 2 young men exchanged glances, each filled with a multitude of unspoken thoughts, unsure of how to begin. Li Xuanxun quickly pulled Li Zijai over, gesturing to the child in his arms as he asked, This is." Li Zijai chuckled. "Li Chenghui. Ah, oh my." Li Xuanxun's face lit up with joy instantly, but before he could say another word, the mysterious spirit mist beside them dissipated. Li Yunjiao, clad in a black robe, could no longer contain himself. His face flushed as he scolded, "Why didn't you write to your family about such an important matter, boy?" Li Zijai was taken aback, allowing Li Xuanxun to take Li Chenghui from his arms. Despite being scolded by his father, he felt a mix of happiness and sorrow as he exclaimed, "Father." Li Yunjiao raised an eyebrow and scrutinized him for a long moment. The brilliance of the rainbow light and the shimmer of the feather robe danced across his face. Finally, he uttered 2 words in a hoarse voice, "Not bad." Having left home at the tender age of 10 to journey into the Azure Pond sect, Li Zijai had not seen his father in 20 years. Li Yunjiao's letters had always been serious and solemn. He had never spoken to him like he was his child. Hearing his father's words now brought tears to Li Zijai's eyes as he said, "I have walked on thin ice in Azure Pond for 20 years, striving to live up to my family's trust." Silence enveloped the family as Li Yunjiao gently stroked his back without a word. Li Zijai quickly composed himself, wiping his face and smiling. "I've received a mission from the sect to protect Libu Prefecture, which is just up ahead. Please, come with me and rest for a while there." He glanced at Li Zijian, noticing that his 8th brother looked somewhat pale. "This is just a scratch," Li Zijian reassured him. Li Zijai frowned and rummaged through his storage pouch, producing several jade bottles filled with high-quality medicine. "Take these quickly. Come with me to rest and heal your injuries. You shouldn't delay this," he urged. The group exchanged glances, agreeing to his suggestion as they headed north together. Li Zijai inquired about the injury, and Li Zijian recounted the encounter with Sidhu Mo. Hearing this, Li Zijai's frown deepened. "I know of this man. Sidhu Mo is one of the top 3 disciples from this generation of the Golden Tang Gate. He has a domineering temperament and a notorious reputation." However, his expression turned decisive as he continued, based on 8th brother's description, "This man is definitely far from ordinary. Despite his arrogance, he is not easy to deal with. We should find an opportunity to eliminate him." Li Yunjiao cradled Li Chenghui, carefully looking at the baby's face with a thoughtful expression as he remarked softly, "That person came straight to us. He either has a Purple Mansion Realm cultivator backing him or has received some critical information. If he were to die, the Golden Tang Gate would surely know, and it would lead to trouble." He voiced his speculation with a hint of doubt in his tone. Back then, Sidhu Mo's lineage was defeated. It was rumored that the entire lineage was destroyed, prompting the elders to unite against the Jai family. Given Sidhu Mo's appearance, I fear those rumors may not be true. Li Zijian nodded, coughing lightly as he inferred, "This individual possesses many treasures and a deep mastery of spells. He likely has a powerful backer within Golden Tang Gate, and he doesn't seem to be." Chapter 515, Reunion II. Li Zijai recalled the records he had read in the sect and said softly, "I have studied Golden Tang Gate thoroughly. There are many secrets revolving around it. He had probably joined the Azure Pond after his lineage was destroyed because he had no other choice. It's no surprise for them to raise an orphan to preserve the lineage. Sidhu Mo should be the son of Sidhu Ye. As the survivor of his lineage, it's understandable that he would be valued." Li Xuanxun interjected quietly, "If that's the case, he will be even more difficult to deal with. If we openly kill him, we risk inciting a furious retaliation from Golden Tang Gate. It would be best to devise a plan." Li Xuanxun's implication was clear, and Li Yunjiao had his own opinions. Though the family preferred to keep a low profile, they were never hesitant. The appearance of a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator did not instill fear or impatience. Rather, they contemplated the ways they could deal with him discreetly. Troubled, Li Xuanxun murmured, but we can't confront him directly. Even if Master Monk and your siblings join forces, they can only stand a chance to take him down. Besides, we don't know how many trump cards he has up his sleeve. As a direct descendant of Golden Tang, he's bound to have many life-saving artifacts. Everyone fell silent, lost in their thoughts as they arrived at Libu Prefecture, where rolling hills and various villages peppered the landscape. Li Zijai illuminated a jade talisman, infusing it with mana as he instructed his family. Wait a moment. After a brief pause, they spotted two figures riding the wind toward them. Both appeared to be at the peak of the Qi cultivation realm, more mature and possessed an air of grace as if they had been raised in luxury. They stopped before the group as one of them asked respectfully, "May I ask which of you is the envoy of the immortal sect?" Li Zijai tossed the jade token over to them and replied softly, "Qingdu Li Zijai of Kingsui Peak. My master is Yuan Tuan from the Yuan family of Mushroom Forest." After hearing these words, the two men immediately grasped Li Zijai's background. They bowed their heads respectfully and said, "Greetings, my lord. Please follow us. The helpers in the market are ready for your inspection." Li Zijai waved his hand dismissively and replied, "No hurry, let them wait for now. These are my family members. They were attacked by bandits on the road and suffered some minor injuries. Please take care of them first. Arrange for the best spirit medicine and put the expenses on my account." The two men quickly replied, "You must be joking, my lord. We can't possibly put the expenses on your account. We'll handle that right away." Li Zijai smiled as he said, "I insist." The two exchanged glances, their expressions shifting to one of obedience as they stammered, "Why yes, understood." Li Zijai had no intention of leaving anything behind here that could be used against him in the future. He was not a direct descendant of the Kai family and had not aligned himself with any faction within the clan, so he could not afford to exploit the situation without hesitation. What a grand display. Li Zijin and Li Xuanxun looked at each other before following one of the attendants downstairs. The old man turned to Li Xuanxun, a look of uncertainty crossing his face. "Have we met before, senior?" Li Xuanxun smiled and replied, "I once ran a small store at Cloud Crown Peak." Oh, I was in charge of that place back then," the old man exclaimed, recognition dawning on him. As the old man recalled the past, he paused awkwardly. Li Xuanxun utilized a secret technique to communicate quietly. "I remember those two. Back then, my family wasn't a clan yet and I was selling talismans. They came to my store before and were full of arrogance, but now..." Li Xuanxun could not help but snicker inwardly. The old man soon presented several spirit items. Li Yunjiao selected a few inexpensive ones and said in a deep voice, "I'll take some time to rest in seclusion and prepare to depart in a few days." Li Zijin nodded and followed him into seclusion. Meanwhile, Li Xuanxun remained in the hall, dealing with the man's flattery, thinking to himself, "Azure Pond sect's disciples are truly cool. Li family Wudu Peak." Li Ziming guided the flame in the furnace gently. It leaped into his palm and turned into long marching fire essence, and he opened his mouth, swallowing the flame into his belly. "It's been a while since I reached the 7th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm." He had stabilized his cultivation over the past few days and found the opportunity to break through to the 7th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm, entering the late stage and now becoming a powerful asset of the Li family. He was another step closer to the foundation establishment realm. Meng Zhuoyan, who was standing nearby, was half undressed, revealing her snow-white skin. She lounged lazily on the ground, supporting herself with her elbows. In her left hand, she held a slender brush, while the other hand pressed down on a portrait. She appeared quite relaxed, adding strokes to her artwork from time to time. Her feet were high up in the air, half of her body basking in the sun, her delicate skin glowing and her waist slender. Li Ziming loosened the collar of his robe, rolling up his sleeves to reveal his own snow-white skin before pulling her into an embrace. Meng Zhuoyan groaned as he turned her to face him, her brush momentarily forgotten. "You've made another breakthrough. With your talent, it's no wonder the Li family keeps a close eye on you," she remarked softly. Li Ziming was usually quiet during intimate moments, but Meng Zhuoyan was always chattering. Her red lips and pearly whites glinted in the sunlight like blood-red jade as she spoke, captivating Li Ziming's attention. "Don't seek revenge. He's dead already, just stay in here and live a peaceful life," he murmured. Meng Zhuoyan exhaled softly, her cheeks flushing slightly. Her eyes sparkled with mischief as she teased him. "What be your cauldron for life? What nonsense are you spouting?" Li Ziming brushed a wet strand of hair from her forehead, revealing her smooth forehead. He rarely offered advice but now said with tenderness, "It's not a bad life for you. Your ex-husband was only with you for half a year due to a matchmaker's arrangement. Is he stronger than me?" A trace of sadness crossed Meng Zhuoyan's face as she replied softly, "You are a genius. He can't possibly compare to you." "That's right. Since you don't have any strong feelings for him, what's the point of clinging to revenge?" Li Ziming was about to offer more advice when his thoughts shifted abruptly. This woman has a rare talent for alchemy. If she joins my family, her cultivation will accelerate year after year. On top of that, I won't have to waste my time refining those embryonic breathing and chi cultivation realm pills. It's a win-win situation. You're right, I didn't spend that much time with him. I only married him because it was arranged by the matchmaker, she replied, gasping for breath. Her tone changed as she continued softly, but he treated me like a person. Her soulful eyes locked onto his as she gently explained. He was an intelligent man, but had no powerful background. He wasn't exceptional, and the foundation establishment realm was beyond his reach. Naturally, he couldn't compare to you, but he treated me like a human being, unlike you. You never show me any sincerity. Li Ziming froze for a moment, staring into her eyes, which had suddenly regained their clarity amidst the haze of pleasure and intoxication. You treat me like a dog, like a tool, like an object. When I screamed in pain, you merely coaxed me. Once your needs are met, you cast me aside. I can only regain some dignity once you're happy, she added with a hint of bitterness. Li Ziming did not respond to her, but instead he strangled her. Both of them groaned at the same time, one of pain and one of pleasure. Li Ziming took a few moments to compose himself before casting a purifying spell to clean himself up. The pills needed today are tranquility, chi nourishment, and mind calming. Don't forget to refine them, he instructed softly. After saying that, he turned away without looking at her expression. Meng Zhuoyan, too weary to clean up herself, laid on her back for a moment before turning over to retrieve her half-wet painting. She picked up her brush and added a few more strokes. The black ink melted away, leaving a finger-sized blotch on the paper. As Meng Zhuoyan sat up naked, beads of sweat glistened on her snow-white skin, rolling down the delicate curves of her legs. She hung the painting up and scrutinized it closely. It depicted Li Ziming sitting comfortably in a large chair with her standing beside him, both smiling sweetly. Heh, she let out a lingering cold laugh that sounded almost like a groan. The pale blue orchid in her hair shimmered in the sunlight. Chapter 516, The Secret of Spells and Techniques, I. Li Zijai casually navigated through the bustling market, taking a moment to visit the courtyard where his grandfather, Li Xuanxuan, was diligently sketching with a talisman brush dipped in spirit ink. Having drawn talismans for over 70 years, the old man could draw them perfectly even with his eyes closed. Without stopping his hand, he raised his gray eyebrows and glanced at Li Zijai. A smile broke across his face as he said, "You're here, Jier." Li Zijai responded respectfully, observing as his grandfather skillfully completed a talisman. The finished product was a returning Origin Shield snow-white talisman of the late-stage chi cultivation realm. Noticing the curious look on his grandson's face, Li Xuanxuan remarked, "It's just a common talisman and can't compare to those available in your sect." Li Zijai took another closer look at it and replied softly, "It's true that it falls short. Grandfather's talisman art is remarkably refined, but without a superior legacy, it's wasted on these simpler designs. The threshold for talisman art is low, and many rogue cultivators like me squander their potential here in UA State." Li Xuanxuan chuckled, waving his hand dismissively. He then retrieved the Dinglin piercer from his storage pouch and handed the golden Dharma artifact to him. This Dinglin piercer is inscribed with Sidu Mo's name and the seal of Golden Tang Gate. We dare not use this, so we hope to find a blacksmith in the market to melt and modify it. At least then it would be usable. He stroked his beard and sighed before continuing. "I took a trip when I had the chance, but the few blacksmiths who could handle it were afraid of offending the Golden Tang Gate, so they turned me away. The only one willing to take it on quoted an outrageous price. I can't believe it." Li Zijai immediately understood the situation. Taking the Dharma artifact into his hands, he assured, "Leave it to me, grandfather. While I can't act recklessly in this market, I can leverage my power and influence to open a few backdoors. I may be able to solve our family's trouble easily." Li Xuanxuan nodded repeatedly with a look of appreciation on his face. "A few years ago, I had a disagreement with your youngest uncle. If you had stayed home, you would have been the perfect person to manage the family. Unfortunately, you had to join the sect as you were the only candidate to fill that role. If only we could delay it a few years back then." Li Zijai shook his head, but Li Xuanxuan continued, "Yes, you were indeed the best candidate to join the sect. Ziming can be heartless. If someone with his personality joined, it could spell trouble. Zijin is too sharp, and Zicheng is too serious. You're the only one who can navigate these waters patiently and with goodwill. I heard you married someone from the Yang family. Does she take good care of you? Bring her back to meet grandfather if opportunity allows." Li Xuanxuan, now old and prone to rambling, chatted on as Li Zijai listened with a smile. Eventually, he said softly, "Just a moment, grandfather. I'll find someone to recast the Dharma artifact." Li Xuanxuan waved, motioning for him to go. As Li Zijai stepped outside, he heard a couple of creaking sounds from the backyard. Li Zijian entered, looking noticeably better, but with a hint of concern on his face. "Granduncle, you should really consider heading home earlier. While we're safe in this market, I'm worried that Sidu Mo could still pose a threat. Auntie is alone at home. If he goes to Mount Qingdu, I fear she won't be able to handle him," he urged. "That's a good point," Li Xuanxuan replied, pausing in his work. He set down the talisman brush and added, when Jayor finishes his retreat, we can all return together. We'll have Zijai take care of the Dharma artifact and deliver it to us when it's done. When Li Zijai left the courtyard, the two older men who had been waiting attentively approached him. Who's the best at refining artifacts in this market? He asked them. One of the old men stepped forward with a fawning smile as he replied, there's a cultivator from the Sword Gate here who specializes in crafting Dharma artifacts, but he's also a disciple of the Immortal Sect and has secluded himself for quite some time. He isn't very friendly, so we dare not approach him. I fear you might need to visit him personally, my lord. From Wanyu Sword Gate, that's fine, take me there, Li Zijai replied decisively with a nod. He set off, riding the rainbow as the two men followed closely behind, admiring and fearing the vibrant light beneath his feet. One of them whispered through Mana voice transmission, this man is quite fortunate to be born as the direct descendant of Kingdu and become a disciple of Azure Pond sect. His master is a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator from the Yuan family of Mushroom Forest Plain, and his father is the ancestor of the Li family. His family has Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators for 3 generations. He's truly been above us since birth. The other old man nodded in agreement, replying in the same manner, indeed. I suspect this lord's background in the sect plays a significant role too. He doesn't get involved in the market dealings. Perhaps he even looks down on them. Of course, Li Zijai could not hear their conversation. When he stepped into the courtyard, he saw a young man sitting on the ground, studying a blueprint. Sensing Li Zijai's presence, he raised his drooping eyelids and glanced at him. I am Cheng Jinju of Wanyu Sword Gate. Which peak of Azure Pond do you come from? The young man asked. Although Wanyu Sword Gate and Azure Pond sect did not have the best relationship, the man's sideways glance felt rather rude. Sensing the arrogance in his demeanor, Li Zijai guessed that this situation might be challenging. Nevertheless, he responded humbly, I'm Li Zijai from Kingsui Peak. Kingsui Peak, never heard of it. Cheng Jinju replied, his tone initially calm, but then he suddenly frowned, straightened his posture, and asked with confusion, Li family. Aren't you from the Li family of Fuchin Peak? This Kingsui you speak of, is it the Kingsui connected to the sword Immortal? I'm from the Li family of Kingdu at Moongaze Lake, Li Zijai explained. As soon as the words left his mouth, Cheng Jinju jumped up from the ground, his expression shifting drastically. His smile became enthusiastic, and he said with a hint of embarrassment, my apologies, fellow Taoist. I saw how young you looked and thought you were a direct descendant of the Devil Gate. It turns out you're the descendant of the Sword Immortal clan. I am truly sorry. Although Cheng Jinju could openly refer to the Azure Pond sect as the Devil Gate, Li Zijai did not dare to acknowledge it. He felt a wave of relief wash over him, but could only bow his head silently and pretend he had not heard the young man's remark. The influence of my predecessors is hardly worth mentioning, he replied modestly. Cheng Jinju's attitude changed completely. He pulled Li Zijai closer and exclaimed cheerfully, what do you mean by hardly worth mentioning? When Celestial Moon Sword Intent first emerged, it was recorded even in the Wanyu Sword Book of my sect. The sword's name is Kinch, and the sword intent is celestial, moon ethereal, and unpredictable. With just a glance, anyone could tell that it embodies the true Tao. We don't like to refer to it by the name of the Immortal Peak in the Devil Gate, so whenever we talk about the sword Immortal, we refer to him by his sword's name, he added. A somber look appeared on his face as he continued, it's a pity he fell in the southern border, such a shame. Cheng Jinju took Li Zijai's hand and said, your family hails from Azure Pond, otherwise my sword gate would be the closest to your family. In recent years, my gate has been fighting everywhere and the situation isn't good. We can barely protect ourselves. Otherwise, we would definitely invite the descendants of your family to join us. He continued softly, as for the wrathful Maha, although my elder has never engaged in the dirty dealings of Buddhist cultivators, they made an exception in the Great Void, secretly trying to rescue the victims. Although his actions have yielded some unexpected results, things ultimately didn't work out. Cheng Jinju seemed to be filled with frustration as he spilled out all these words that he had been suppressing all this while. Li Zijai listened intently until he finished speaking, feeling slightly touched by his emotive expressions. Cheng Jinju then noticed the expression on his face and smiled brightly as he said, come, fellow Taoist. Your family's techniques are impressive. Let's have a quick spar with swords. Chapter 517, The Secret of Spells and Techniques, II. Li Zijai understood that Cheng Jinju was likely wary of him pretending to be a member of the Li family to deceive him. He placed his right hand on the hilt of his sword, gathering his energy before saying calmly, all right, but I'll only demonstrate one move. After all, I only know the single move from the Law of Celestial Moon. While Li Zijai was thinking to himself, Cheng Jinju grew serious. He drew his sword, its brilliant sword chi already shimmering and flowing, signaling that he was ready for battle. Wanyu's sword technique legacy had been passed down through generations. As Cheng Jinju activated his sword, he observed Li Zijai's movements keenly. Suddenly, the sword hanging at Li Zijai's waist leaped into action, unleashing a massive sword arc that rushed toward him. Clang! Cheng Jinju retracted his sword, shaking it to dispel the energy of the sword arc that had surged toward him. He stepped back a few paces with a thoughtful look on his face. Li Zijai felt a pang of unease in his heart. He moved really quickly with his sword. Despite being in the late stage of the Qi cultivation realm, he effortlessly neutralized my strike, and that speaks volumes about his strength. Meanwhile, Cheng Jinju stroked his chin and commented, "Your swordsmanship is quite peculiar. It's very interesting." He was eager to see more of Li Zijai's sword technique, but Li Zijai refused and cut to the chase. "I obtained a Dharma artifact from Golden Tang Gate, and I would like to ask you to recast it so that my family can use it." Golden Tang Gate, huh? No problem, but is it a Foundation Establishment Realm Dharma artifact? Cheng Jinju asked nonchalantly. Li Zijai handed him the Dinglin Piercer. Cheng Jinju took it and examined it before praising it. "Very interesting design. It's a good treasure. Do you want to make it into a sword? What type of true essence can control it?" The questions he asked showed his experience in his trade. "Snow and pine," Li Zijai replied. Cheng Jinju considered this for a moment before nodding thoughtfully. "Just bring all the cold jade or cold stone you have and I will recast it for you. It will take about 2 to 3 years. This golden material is excellent. It would be a waste to keep it in its current form. It can easily be converted into a Foundation Establishment Realm sword." Li Zijai thanked him gratefully and then asked, "How many spirit stones will it cost?" Cheng Jinju casually stroked the Dinglin Piercer in his hand and said, "Just pay me however you wish. I won't take advantage of you. However, I do have one request. I must be the one to name this Dharma artifact once it's done." Li Zijai did not mind this term at all and nodded in agreement. After exchanging a few more words, they bid farewell and parted ways. Upon returning to the courtyard, Li Zijai found his family preparing to leave. He felt a pang of reluctance, having only spent half a month with them. He hurried over to Li Yunjiao and asked, "Has your wound healed, father? Why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Li Yunjiao replied gently, "My condition has stabilized, but I have hurt my tendons and bones. Such an injury cannot be healed in a day or two. I still need to go home and stay in seclusion for 3 to 5 years." Ron Yu letter 1 D3 small cap B Igrav section. He adjusted his black robe and added in a serious voice, "I have a few things to discuss with you." Li Zijai nodded, but did not expect what Li Yunjiao said next. "You need to spar with your younger brother." Huh. Li Zijai immediately glanced at Li Zijian, who was holding a sword in his arms and was equally stunned. However, understanding quickly dawned on him. As expected, Li Yunjiao explained, "Let us see how my family's descendant compares to the disciple of the Azure Pond sect." Feeling slightly awkward, Li Zijai landed and noticed that Li Zijian, dressed simply in white, had long been stuck in the 6th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm. In contrast, he had just recently broken through and was wearing a brocade robe. After a brief moment of thought, he removed his feathered robe and nodded at his younger brother. "Please excuse me, brother." Li Zijian soared into the air and executed the river crossing torrential step, closing the distance between them while pressing his hand on the hilt of his sword. His expression was serious as flew toward Li Zijai, white chi swirling in his eyes. Li Zijai, standing in midair with his sheath in hand, felt the colorful light beneath his feet growing dense and calm. He turned sideways and instantly pulled several feet away, shocking Li Zijian. "This footwork technique is too advanced. I can't seem to close the distance." Resolving to act quickly, he drew his sword and unleashed a powerful white sword arc. Li Zijai, not intending to overwhelm his brother, also drew his sword, responding with a celestial moon sword arc. Li Zijian's sword was ordinary, but Li Zijai's shone with mana light, dazzling and eye-catching, clearly indicating that it was far from ordinary. When their sword arcs collided, a loud explosion reverberated through the air. Boom! The two sword arcs clashed in midair, sending smoke and dust swirling around them. Li Zijai dispersed a wisp of sword chi with a wave of his sleeve, revealing a hint of surprise on his face as he nodded approvingly. "Good," he praised. Though Li Zijai was older and had trained for longer, while also possessing superior sword talent, his extensive study of spells in the sect meant he had dedicated less time to swordsmanship than Li Zijian. Despite having the advantage of a Dharma artifact, he found himself at a slight disadvantage. Li Zijian seized the upper hand with that one move, eager to close in and unleash sword chi. However, Li Zijai shook his head with a smile, performed a hand seal, and a vibrant light burst forth, floating light gathering. Colorful lights floated about, shimmering and flickering like lightning. In an instant, Li Zijian felt his grip empty and realized that his sword had flown into Li Zijai's hand. "What kind of spell was that?" Li Zijian exclaimed in shock. Li Yunjiao, who had been quietly observing the fight, was taken aback. When he saw Li Zijai snatch the sword from Li Zijian with a swift motion, his expression shifted to one of alarm. "I knew it. There's a method to counter weapon arts. Rogue and clan cultivators typically could not practice these spells or techniques, relying instead on weapon skills like swords, spears, and sabers to fight against the immortal sects. These skills were easy to learn but had high potential. Hence, Li Yunjiao had long suspected that the Azure Pond sect possessed spells specifically designed to counter them. His heart raced. If that's the case, how can we possibly win? It takes just a spell for them to disarm us. Although Li Zijian was caught off guard, he was quick to react. He swiftly brought his fingers together and unleashed Slaughter Jun Kui Light. White light surged forward, aimed directly at Li Zijai. Good spell, Li Zijai complimented. He quickly performed a hand seal, bending his middle and ring fingers into his palm, raising the others to form a triangle shape and reciting a brief chant. Enter me, Heart Cauldron. As soon as he finished speaking, the Kui light formed a white line, swirling gracefully before landing in his palm. With a gentle twist, he redirected it, causing the white energy to flow and freeze the ground beneath them. After witnessing this display, Li Zijian could only sigh in resignation. Li Yunjiao and Li Xuanxuan exchanged glances, both astonished. Jir is not a direct descendant of Azure Pond, yet the Dawn Dew gathering technique is a complete and comprehensive manual, even by the standards of the Azure Pond, is already this powerful. If he were part of the Kai family. Li Zijai cupped his fist to his younger brother. Noticing the silent expressions of the two elders, he assured softly, Jir is not weak in the sect. Li Yunjiao sighed and asked, how many spells can an average Azure Pond disciple practice? Li Zijai replied respectfully, 3 or 4. If they attempt more, it might delay their foundation establishment. Glancing at his father, he hesitated before adding, disciples in the sect typically establish their foundation in their 50s or 60s. It's not solely due to their talent, but rather the time lost practicing spells while waiting for the opportunity to break through. If certain spells remain unpracticed during the Qi cultivation realm, achieving foundation establishment becomes significantly more challenging. Why is that? Li Yunjiao asked, frowning slightly. Li Zijai explained, once a cultivator establishes their immortal foundation, many divine wonders naturally manifest. The spells they intend to learn do not harmonize with them. Improvement becomes difficult. Conversely, if those spells are learned before establishing the foundation, they may be influenced positively by the immortal foundation, leading to remarkable changes. Thus, disciples in the sect strive to push themselves as much as possible. Unfortunately, some end up aging without progress, resulting in numerous tragedies. Chapter 518, Returning to King Du'ai. I see, Li Yunjiao murmured. Back then, Kong Tingyan did not use a single spell to deal with Wushou. Although Profound Peak Gate may not match Azure Pond, she should have 1 or 2 spells as a direct descendant. She must have been wary of me and did not use her full strength. After Li Zijai had finished explaining, he glanced at his younger brother and said, this should be the Kui light spell we got at home. It's perfect for 8th Brother's cultivation path and will be even more effective when you reach the foundation establishment realm. Although Li Zijian was defeated in just a few moves, he did not show any frustration. Instead, a spark of curiosity crossed his face. Brother Zhai, what are the limitations of your spell? I was just about to share. Li Zijai nodded with a small smile as he elaborated. Heavenly Glow excels at both striking and snatching. Excluding direct lineage secret legacies, Floating Light gathering ranks among the best in Azure Pond. However, the effectiveness of this spell relies on the opponent's sword cultivation and the quality of the sword they wield. If you could unleash sword essence or wield a foundation establishment realm Dharma artifact, it would have been challenging for me to snatch your sword, he explained. He paused, glancing at Li Yunjiao, and continued, if it were the Qingche sword, not only would I fail to take it, but I might also end up with my fingers cut and bleeding profusely. Additionally, if the sword's intent is still sealed within, I'd likely lose my cultivation along with 2 pieces of my flesh. Li Yunjiao nodded, feeling significantly reassured by this information, and asked, what if an Azure Pond Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator casts this spell? Well, it's a sword that belonged to the sword Immortal, so it should be quite difficult to take, Li Zijai replied. He thought for a moment, then added, but the tactics of a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator are unpredictable, and we don't know their spell's grade. It could likely still create a disturbance, affecting the opponent's swordsmanship. I see, Li Yunjiao replied thoughtfully and then asked, has Yu Muxian practiced this spell? Li Zijai understood the concern in his question but replied respectfully, I have no idea. Li Yunjiao resolved seriously, then I hope I can keep the sword intent within the blade, in case one of my descendants is talented enough to comprehend it and become a sword immortal. At the very least, it can be used against Yu Muxian instead of being wasted. Li Zijai sighed internally, bowing to his father as he said, I have also been keeping an eye on Yu Muxian. He's been quietly refining Dharma artifacts in the sect this year, but he's a genius and he has already broken through to the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. As expected, Li Yunjiao showed no surprise. He pressed his lips together, remaining silent. His son continued, Fei Qingyi, the female disciple of the Fei family who trained at Yunwu Peak, has broken through to the 4th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm and mastered the Nai Water Pure Right technique. She is well liked by Yu Muxian and loyal to him. If this continues, it could spell trouble for us. HMPH. Li Xuanxuan frowned, his anger palpable. The Fei family hasn't sent anyone to visit in years. They've likely forgotten how my second uncle saved their family with his sword and liberated Glacial Cloud Peak. Li Yunjiao remained unfazed and replied softly, "This is how the world operates. The Fei family is defending Fei Qingyi, and there's nothing we can say about it. We can only focus on our own matters." Li Zijai cupped his fist slightly, refraining from responding. He then hurried to change the subject, sharing details about the creation of the Dharma artifact with Cheng Jinju. After a moment of thought, Li Yunjiao took out a piece of blue and white ore from his storage pouch and asked, "Is this Naiwater cold iron suitable for crafting that Dharma artifact?" "Oh yes, now I remember," Li Zijai replied, realization dawning on him. "Yes, of course. This will reduce some costs. When it's finished, I'll have someone send it home." Li Zijai implied that he would cover the expense of making the Dharma artifact. Li Yunjiao studied him for a moment before saying, "I'll leave it to you then. When I return home, I'll have someone send the cold iron here." Li Zijai nodded and said, "I'll try to gather some news about Situ Mo in the market and report back to the family. Please take care of Huter." He glanced at Li Chenghui in his grandfather's arms, showing a hint of reluctance in his eyes. Rolling up the hem of his feathered robe, he searched his pockets but could not find anything to leave for the child. Letter Winda six thrissa, letter Winda def of us. In the end, he could only blurt out a single sentence. "I'll choose 1 or 2 Dharma artifacts and send them home for him later." "Of course," Li Xuanxuan replied, still cradling his grandson tightly. Li Yunjiao added, "Your mother also gave you a younger sister in your absence. She has already condensed her profound scenery chakra. Her name is Li Yuexiang, and she shows promising talent. I'll send her to visit you soon." "What?" Li Zijai was taken aback, unable to hide his surprise. He smiled wryly and thought to himself, "So much for complaining that I didn't write to you when my wife gave birth to Huter. You didn't even bother to tell me I have a younger sister. And she's probably already 7 or 8 years old now." Despite grumbling internally, he was delighted by the news. Of course, he dared not talk back to Li Yunjiao and merely responded politely. Li Xuanxuan beamed with pride, mumbling something about like father, like son. After bidding their farewell, they fetched King Heng from the side yard and set off into the night. Li Zijai escorted his family out of the prefecture, and when he turned around, the 2 old men approached him with fawning smiles. Resuming his courteous yet distant demeanor, he asked, "Does the Golden Tang Gate run any business in the market?" Li Yunjiao and his group did not linger, hastily departing on the wind. As they headed west, he worried that Situ Mo might be lurking in the shadows while they were flying out in the open. He glanced at King Heng and asked, "Master Monk, Situ Mo is likely colluding with Buddhist cultivators in Zhao State to plot against us. You're a Buddhist cultivator of true Dao lineage. Do you know of any way to protect us? I don't expect us to remain undetected, but I would like an early warning if those in Zhao State manage to deduce our whereabouts." "Benefactor," King Heng replied, looking a bit ashamed. "The methods of Zhao's Buddhist cultivators and their power of deduction with the support of Maha's power surpass my own. I can only rely on my Dao lineage to protect myself from their schemes and deductions. There's little else I can do." He sighed dejectedly. "No need to blame yourself, Master Monk," Li Yunjiao reassured him. It had been a casual question, yet King Heng's kindness stirred feelings of shame over his own perceived incompetence. Li Yunjiao nodded thoughtfully. At least they can't deduce King Heng. There's still some room for maneuver. The group rode the wind until they reached the vicinity of Munge's Lake, finally allowing themselves to breathe a sigh of relief. Mount Qingdu was peaceful. Its grand formation was intact, and the territories under their rule seemed tranquil, basking in the sunset. Li Yunjiao exhaled, and a young man in black flew over from the distance. It was Li Wushao, who had sensed their approach through their spiritual connection. He cupped his fist in greeting, landing respectfully before them. "Wushao greets master." Li Yunjiao nodded slightly as King Heng excused himself and returned to the island where he stayed. Li Zijin and Li Xuanxuan descended on the mountain together. Li Qinghong flew out to meet them, clad in her jade armor and carrying a spear behind her. As soon as the siblings met, they fell silent, though both were eager to share their updates. They eventually took turns recounting what had transpired during each other's absence. "Zhang Yun, Zhang Huid," Li Yunjiao asked skeptically. Chapter 519, Returning to Qingdu II. Since Zhang Huid was from the Zhang family and seemed to have significant background resources, the Li family had long suspected him to be a disciple of the immortal sect who had veered toward the Devil Dao. Now, with Zhang Yun personally protecting him, those suspicions were confirmed. Yes, it seems that the Golden Feather sect was not only involved in the Devil Plague, their Purple Mansion Realm cultivator also closely monitored the incident, and even sent their own direct disciples to manipulate the Devil Plague in their territory, Li Qinghong remarked. That's to be expected. After so many years in the Golden Feather realm, the treasures accumulated by the clans are certainly tempting. Moreover, the prominent clans have already monopolized the golden feather's cultivation and secret techniques, and they've long been eager to eliminate any competition, Li Xuanxun replied with a small sigh. Aside from Golden Feather and Azure Pond, several of the other 7 gates, such as Changxiao and Purple Smoke, have pushed disciples who have little hope of making further progress to pursue the Devil Dao. While they may not dominate the situation, they can certainly still benefit from the scraps, he added. Li Qingheng then continued, since Zhang Yun's departure, those devil cultivators have grown increasingly bold, capturing cultivators throughout the barren mountains. It's not just our family. I heard that the Shen family, an immortal clan in the Yue cultivating sect bordering the northern barren mountains, had also sent people here. They must have been forced back by Zhang Yun. Li Xuanxun shook his head as he gave a word of caution. Don't worry about them, just avoid provoking them. Li Qingheng nodded in agreement before taking out a jade box, smiling as she presented it. Look at this. Li Yunjiao took the box and scanned its contents with his spiritual sense. It was a red fruit wrapped in dark gray leaves, beating like a heart. His expression shifted to one of delight as he remarked, this is Blood Sun fruit. Lucan is truly efficient. Zijai happens to be in Libu Prefecture right now. Let him take this to the Foundation Establishment Realm Alchemist. Li Yunjiao stored away the treasure carefully. With that, the matter was finally settled. Li Zijin still seemed concerned about the wound on his wrist and reminded Li Yunjiao to rest. Upon hearing that, Li Qingheng also urged him to return to his cave dwelling for proper rest. Li Yunjiao acknowledged their advice but headed to Li Yuanping's courtyard instead. He intended to take medicine and delay his seclusion for another year or two so that he could keep Li Yuanping company. However, when Li Yuanping heard that he was injured, he closed his door and refused to meet Li Yunjiao. Unable to overcome the insistence of his siblings, Li Yunjiao reluctantly retreated into seclusion to heal his wounds. As Li Zijin flew toward the mountain's peak, he spotted a girl of about 8 or 9 standing on a rock. Dressed in white, she squinted against the sun, a smile illuminating her face as she called out, "Brother, Xianger." Li Zijin replied with a warm grin. Li Yuexiang resembled her mother, Xiao Giluan, with her fine eyebrows and phoenix eyes. Even at a tender age, she exuded grace. Though still a child, she carried herself with the maturity expected of a teen. She twiddled her thumbs nervously and said, "Father only came to see me once, then went into seclusion again." As the only girl in the Zai and Yue generation, Li Yuexiang was cherished by her elder brothers. However, her mother, Xiao Giluan, had raised her with discipline, instilling a sense of humility in her. The frequent and prolonged absences of her father only heightened her unease. Li Zijin sighed, fully understanding the situation. Many privileged children were born into clans where their parents were already Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators. To these parents, what seemed like a brief period of seclusion often resulted in them emerging to find their children had already become teenagers. After yet another period of seclusion to polish their cultivation, they would realize their kids had grown into adults in the blink of an eye. In truth, Brother Zijai and Uncle Jiao also don't see each other often. Both of you are raised by your mother. Your father has a lot of responsibilities to the family. You must be understanding. Li Zijin assured as he gently consoled the girl who looked like she was about to cry. At this point, Li Yuexiang had already begun her training as an embryonic breathing realm cultivator. Taking her hand, Li Zijin distracted her, smiling as he said, "I brought you a little nephew. How do you think your mother will feel about him?" Li Yuexiang pouted, saying glumly, "He's just another one who can't see his father." Li Zijin could only respond with an awkward smile as he led her up the mountain. At Lake Xian's estuary, clad in a golden robe, Situ Mo rode the wind on golden light with a grim expression. He flew along the riverbank, hands clasped behind his back while remaining silent. The demonic creatures lurking in the river below saw the brilliance above and fell still, too intimidated to even move. Situ Mo's expression darkened even more as thoughts raced through his mind. What a missed opportunity. The Li family will be on high alert now, making it even harder to deal with them. Catching them off guard like this is a rarity. Who knows when the next chance will arise? While he was lost in his thoughts, a yellow light erupted from Lake Xian, revealing a muscular monk with a clean-shaven head and a flushed body. His fierce gaze bore down on Situ Mo as he exclaimed, "Situ Mo, what have you done? This is a disaster. It's absurd." Situ Mo's expression darkened, and he retorted through clenched teeth, "Better than you, old man. You're too scared to even show your face. That pathetic, wrathful Dao lineage you cultivate should be called the cowardly Dao lineage instead. Watch your mouth. The wrathful Dao lineage isn't some cowardly Dao lineage. I've been deducing for 3 years. The Li family has too many ways and secret tricks up their sleeves. Although they don't dare to kill you, they could strike me down with some talisman or sword." Situ Mo sneered, but he did not deny it. He had indeed hidden a lot of trump cards up his sleeve too. He simply laughed and mocked. "You can only blame your Wrath Dao lineage for being torn apart. How many even remember Maha's death and are actually seeking revenge? If they cared, a little master monk wouldn't even be here in the first place. What do you know?" Nothing is more important than preserving the Dao lineage. When someone ascends to the position of Maha again, it will be easy to capture the Li family. Sidu Mo paused, realizing that the monk had made a valid point. He cast a wary glance at him and then shouted, "If that's the case, why are you messing around in the south?" The big monk chuckled with a fierce glint in his eyes. Since the Li family killed the Maha, perhaps the key to ascending to that position again lies within them. "What's wrong with giving it a try?" he asked. The expression on his face suddenly darkened again, returning to its wrathful form as he reprimanded, "Do not question me. Besides, I explicitly told you to kill only Li Zijian, bring his body back, and leave that monk alone. Why did you set up an ambush and ruin the entire plan?" A sinister expression crossed Sidu Mo's features as he replied, "What use is Li Zijian? If we're going to kill, we should take out Li Yuanjiao and Li Qinghang instead." "You're making a mistake. What do you know? Clans fear nothing more than a lack of successors. Killing Li Zijian, even if he's injured, would cause more anguish than seriously wounding Li Yuanjiao. If we crippled Li Zijian, the Li family will resent us for 50 or 60 years and could even risk their downfall." The monk yelled out furiously. Sidu Mo fell silent but was sneering inwardly. "You think I don't know that? Monks like you are good at deducing. If I were to simply kill him, the cause and effect would be settled instantly. Would you still stay around and help me if you deduced that this wouldn't help your breakthrough to Maha? You'd just wash your hands of this and walk away. Where else would I find a capable ally who isn't afraid of the Li family? If I'm going to kill someone, I need to aim high." The monk continued berating him but failed to vent all his frustration. In the end, he only asked, "How long will it take you to return this time?" "Probably 10 years. Sidu Mo replied, giving him a troubled look. "The profound Peak Gate has sent a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator to oversee things overseas. She's rather formidable. I think her name is Kong Tingyun. I have no choice but to deal with this situation." He widened his eyes and continued coldly, "It would be best to find a chance to eliminate her, so we won't waste time. I have to stir the pot too. We can't let Profound Peak and Golden Tang be on friendly terms again." Chapter 520, Contact in Wubu Market I, Qingdu Peak. Li Yuanjiao was cultivating in seclusion, healing his wounds. However, the Blood Sun fruit needed to be delivered to Li Zijai in Wubu Market of Libu Prefecture. With uncertainties surrounding Sidu Mo's movements, the Li family decided to send King Heng to fulfill the task. Li Zijian briefly mentioned the matter, to which King Heng nodded and solemnly put the treasure into his chest pocket. He was a man who took promises seriously, committed to fulfilling them even if they were at the cost of his life. Li Zijian's eyelids twitched as he asked, "Master Monk, they can't trace you, right?" Seeing King Heng nod in affirmation, Li Zijian finally realized that his Dao lineage truly emphasized on keeping promises. He saw King Heng off with an amused smile at the border. Yet as he watched him leave, he sighed. Those who cultivated the ancient method are simple and honest, but those Buddhist cultivators who practice the new way are cunning. The two could not be more different. With this thought, Li Zijian smiled wryly, adding, "Then again, my family is also known for our cunningness." Initially planning to fly back to Mount Qingdu, Li Zijian changed his mind. "It's been a long time since I saw Ziming. I wonder if he's been fooling around and neglecting his cultivation. I better go remind him." He made a sharp turn in midair and landed on Mount Wudu. The scenery was lush on Wudu, and outside the forest courtyard and alchemy pavilion, a woman awaited, dressed in white and wearing a veiled hat that was adorned with pearls and jade. Upon seeing Li Zijian land, the woman quickly removed her hat and said softly, "And greets Senior." Li Zijian paused briefly, recognizing her as Njayan's daughter, Li Ziming's new wife and his sister-in-law. He lowered his gaze and replied, "Sister-in-law, there's no need for such formality," and nodded and said softly, "Since brother-in-law is here, I'll take my leave." Li Zijian nodded and then stepped into the cave dwelling in the backyard. Inside, Li Ziming sat, swallowing a flame from the furnace. Upon seeing Li Zijian, he exclaimed with delight, "Come, come, come." Li Zijian's spiritual sense swept through the area, and he immediately understood the situation. His voice was filled with astonishment as he asked, "You've broken through to the 8th heavenly layer." Li Ziming laughed, waving his hands dismissively as he replied, "I've been accumulating my strength for a while and just happened to break through on a whim." Though Li Ziming spoke casually and with pride, Li Zijian understood him and the effort behind his achievement. He was clearly waiting to be praised, so Li Zijian complimented him a few times, eliciting a laugh from him before adding, "Take another talisman pill and you'll be able to break through to the 9th heavenly layer of the Qi cultivation realm, and the Foundation establishment will be just within your reach." "Of course," Li Ziming replied with confidence. With a serious tone, he continued, "Once Uncle Jiao emerges from seclusion, we can choose an island to settle down overseas. Leave the family to me, I can handle it." "I know you're too lazy to go overseas," Li Zijian grumbled inwardly. "I saw An waiting outside. While she has a good temper, you shouldn't take her for granted. Then family members are talented, and Jayan has worked hard and made significant contributions over the years. You can't let her down," he reminded Li Ziming. Prescription? Yes, of course. I do treat her very well. I'm always nice. I couldn't meet her just now because I was refining pills, he explained. Li Zijian nodded, hesitating for a moment before finally asking, what about Meng Zhuoyan? How do you plan to deal with her? Li Ziming paused, suddenly looking a bit awkward as he replied softly, I've tried to persuade her many times. She refuses to give up on revenge and stay with me. I guess I'll just send her away when the times come. There's no need for further discussion on this matter. Seeing Li Zijian frown, Li Ziming quickly added, I haven't treated her unfairly. I've given her all the resources she needed and imparted all the alchemy knowledge she should know. When the time comes, everything will balance out and we can part ways without owing each other. Li Zijian shook his head in disbelief. You're truly heartless. I don't think that's what she's after. That, Li Ziming began, feeling a mix of shock and irritation from having his affair exposed by his brother. That's nonsense. Who do you think she is? Our relationship is purely physical, he said with a sigh. Li Zijian glanced at him and gently reminded, if you're going to let her leave, then make sure she doesn't take anything that has our family's seal away with her. We don't want trouble in the future. That's true, Li Ziming replied absent-mindedly. With no further comment, Li Zijian departed. Li Ziming straightened up, noticing several paintings scattered across the courtyard. He picked them up, examined each one closely, and then set them aside. He spat out long-marching fire essence. Meng Zhuoyan caused only a brief flutter of emotions in his heart, which he quickly dismissed and quickly forgot. Libu Prefecture, Wubu Market. In just 3 months, Li Zijai had established control over the entire market and organized its rules and regulations. He won over several shop owners who were rogue cultivators, then made things easier for the shops owned by Zhao, Yuan, and Yang families. With Azure Pond's support, taking over this place is straightforward. No one dares to defy me. If it were not for Azure Pond and the backing of 3 prominent clans, it would have taken Li Zijai 10 times longer to gain this level of control. Now, after giving just a few orders, he could focus on his own cultivation properly. According to the sect's unspoken rules, he could now take over many marginal profits. Concerned about giving others leverage against him, Li Zijai chose to hold off. Due to this, visitors were rare in the market. Wubu was not a large market. The disciples from the peaks were wary of it, and direct disciples were not interested in it. Hence, only Li Zijai and the relevant families were here. The spiritual energy here is far inferior to that of Azure Pond, but we are free and relaxed here, without the need for constant worry. As he pondered these thoughts, someone approached and cupped his fist respectfully. My lord, the records for Golden Tang Gate are here, he reported with a bow. Li Zijai took the document and flipped through it, quickly locating information on Sidu Mo, the current apparent head of the Golden Tang's main lineage, who should be the last survivor of a lineage that had been wiped out long ago. Originally, the Golden Tang Gate was run by the eldest son, Sidu Li, who had marriage ties with Profound Peak Gate. After the founder, Sidu Tang, died, his second son, Sidu Nu, supported by the Golden Feather sect, killed his elder brother and took control, achieving the Purple Mansion realm. After Sidu Nu's death, the Golden Tang Gate fractured into several factions. In the end, control was restored to those in the first lineage, who were aligned with the Azure Pond sect. Those in Sidu Nu's lineage were slaughtered, leaving only Sidu Mo as the only survivor. How complicated. Li Zijai skimmed through the document. He could clearly see the traces of conflict between Azure Pond and Golden Feather. As for the repeated massacres and struggles with the Golden Tang Gate, that was merely a show between the two sects. They were all forced to do this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have bothered to secretly shelter Sidu Mo. Li Zijai felt a jolt of surprise and turned to his subordinate. Where is Sidu Mo now? What mission has he accepted? I heard he has taken on a mission to the Eastern Sea and may not return for several years. The man replied respectfully. Continue, Li Zijai encouraged, and the man went on to explain. According to the cultivators from the Han, Fu, and He families who visited the market, the Kong family of Profound Peak has sent 2 Foundation Establishment Realm cultivators to an overseas market. They've taken control of 2 more islands and blocked the sea route, causing the Golden Tang Gate's population to dwindle by more than half. The relationship between Profound Gate and Golden Tang was once very good, with no conflicts. However, it has soured in recent years, leading to this situation. In response, Golden Tang Gate has dispatched Sidu Mo, he added.